Welcome to the center of the world, where our journey begins in a vast, desolate white wasteland, a place where a true monster is said to reside. This land is home to terrifying beasts, from a monstrous white serpent that devours entire glaciers to a massive gray bear whose every step causes earthquakes, proving this world is as brutal as it is beautiful. We also have vile rats that pollute the very seas, but an ancient emperor, one who brought this world alive from the wasteland, once declared that the most dangerous thing here is not the monsters at all. No, it's something else entirely, and as our story truly kicks off in this white wasteland, we witness a powerful barbarian, our protagonist, already in the thick of a brutal fight, leaping to smash a giant scorpion-like creature. With a guttural roar, our hero delivers a devastating blow to the creature, showcasing the raw, untamed power of his barbarian nature as he prepares to finish the fight. He slams his axe down with incredible force, the impact sending shockwaves across the snowy ground, making short work of the monster in front of him. Finishing the creature with a final, brutal stomp, a voice notes that only a barbarian would proudly display their ignorance in such a fashion, hinting at the stigma attached to our hero's new identity. As our protagonist ponders how much longer he has to endure these ignorant brutes, a childlike barbarian asks if ignorant is something edible, highlighting the very ignorance he's struggling with, much to his exasperation. The situation gets even more ridiculous as one of the barbarians is seen spitting out something vile and green, with our hero asking if he didn't specifically warn them not to eat that, because it would literally kill them. But the real shocker comes when our hero, now visibly angered with a purple aura flaring around him, confronts Greta, demanding to know how it's been less than a week and she's already eaten all of the dangerous stuff. Greta, still sparkling with pride, boasts that eating all the dangerous things was a noble challenge, leaving our hero utterly baffled and asking if she's seriously proud of nearly killing herself and her friends. Suddenly, the bald barbarian starts foaming at the mouth, his eyes wide with distress, gasping Greta's name as if he's the one dying from her noble challenge consumption. Just like that, the poor bald barbarian collapses face-first into the snow, confirming everyone's worst fears, as the barbarian woman looks on in utter shock, and our hero, horrified, demands to know what's happening to Greta. Greta screams, kneeling over the unconscious barbarian, desperately trying to rouse him, while our hero, still reeling from the chaos, frantically yells for her to wake up and get herself together, highlighting the absolute disarray these barbarians are in. But wait, the scene totally shifts, pulling us into a flashback, as we hear about a yearning for a world of fantasy, wonder, and magic, as a person climbs the tallest mountain on earth, having quit their job to embark on this grand journey. This determined adventurer, still chasing that elusive magic, stands triumphantly at the peak, proudly proclaiming that they've reached the very center of the planet. Even reaching the southernmost point of the globe, under a stunning full moon, yields no mystical revelations, as the adventurer's growing disappointment confirms that nothing magical ever happened. Against a breathtaking cosmic backdrop, a glowing silhouette kneels in prayer, lamenting that reality was so far from fantasy, as they begged every night to wake up in a dream, in a world of pure imagination. Then, a blinding, spiraling vortex of light erupts across the cosmos, symbolizing the moment that heartfelt prayer was finally answered, and a new destiny began. Back in the present, or perhaps just another moment in this vast snowy expanse, a horse-drawn carriage, accompanied by mysterious cloaked figures, rumbles through the biting cold, indicating new characters are entering our barbarian's world, completely unaware of the chaos he's just experienced. The focus shifts to the cloaked figures from the previous panel, revealing they are struggling with the intense cold of the wasteland, with one man complaining while his companion sternly tells him to layer up or freeze. The complaining man, now identified as part of the escort, argues with his captain, saying that even with a great reward, traversing this frozen wasteland is pure madness, only for the captain to sharply remind him that they all signed up for this mission. The disgruntled man protests that they had no idea the journey would be this brutal, clearly regretting their decision to brave the treacherous conditions. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, an older, distinguished gentleman in a formal suit and monocle shivers visibly, impatiently grumbling about the pervasive cold, signaling that even the privileged aren't immune to this wasteland's harshness. He then turns his gaze to the woman he's escorting, asking if she's holding up all right amidst the freezing journey. The woman, identified as Milfina from the Akasha family, responds with a gentle smile, assuring him she's perfectly fine, but her inner thoughts reveal she's secretly struggling, fearing she might freeze to death. The stern old man glares out the window, his expression hardening with anger as he overhears the complaints of the freezing guards, finding their lack of fortitude incredibly rude. Milfina gently advises him not to be too harsh, reminding him that these very guards are the only ones courageous enough to escort them through the perilous White Wasteland. Her compassion shines through as she looks out at the guards, her expression etched with worry, suggesting they bring them inside, seeing how absolutely frozen they appear. The old man, however, quickly shuts down her suggestion, reminding her, with a grave expression and a dismissive hand gesture, of the true dangers that lurk within this White Wasteland, dangers that make even the harshest cold seem insignificant compared to the monsters and barbarians residing here. Milfina muses about the dangers, specifically monsters, as the narrative shifts to a historical account of a long, long time ago. The flashback begins, detailing an emperor who, driven by a desire to claim the entire world, set his sights on conquering the White Wasteland, leading countless warriors into its treacherous depths himself. Years later, after his empire had already crumbled and faded from memory, the emperor returned from the wasteland, utterly broken and alone, having lost every single one of his men. He had aged decades, his mind seemingly shattered, as he spoke of monsters in the White Wasteland, but gravely warned that they were not the true danger. The true menace, according to the emperor, was revealed: the barbarians, a chilling revelation considering our protagonist's new, powerful form. This shadowy figure, emanating raw power, stood as a stark reminder of where these barbarians resided, deep within the heart of the perilous White Wasteland. Back in the carriage, the old man, clearly unsettled by the story, dismisses it as nothing more than a fantastical legend, refusing to believe such dangers truly exist. Milfina, looking pensive, explains that the emperor's terrifying accounts held significant truth, as many of the monsters he described were later officially confirmed to be real. The old man, with a slight smile, counters that while some monsters were confirmed, there has never, ever been a verified sighting of a barbarian. Milfina agrees, confirming the absolute truth that no one has ever witnessed a barbarian firsthand, though countless terrifying tales of these mysterious beings continue to circulate. Right as they dismiss the idea of barbarians, the captain suddenly orders everyone to stop, sensing an ominous presence in the blinding snow, leaving his guards on edge and asking what could possibly be out there. A faint, distant figure appears in the whiteout, barely visible through the snow, as the guards strain their eyes, unable to clearly make out what's slowly approaching them. One of the guards, trying to keep his composure, reports a mix of good and bad news, starting with the positive that the approaching figure is small, but then he dramatically pauses before delivering the grim part. The bad news is revealed as the figure, our powerful barbarian protagonist, continues to stride purposefully toward them, making it clear they are now directly in his path. Inside the carriage, Milfina and the old man, along with the guards outside, react with wide-eyed alarm and shock, realizing that a real threat has emerged from the desolate wasteland. As the figure draws closer, his muscular, fur-clad form becomes more distinct, leading one of the guards to question if it's truly a human, utterly bewildered by the sight before him. Our barbarian protagonist, with his piercing purple eyes, stands tall and imposing amidst the swirling snow, making a truly unforgettable entrance. The guards ready their massive axes, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination, as they brace themselves for whatever confrontation is about to unfold. The terrifying truth then hits them like a blizzard: the figure isn't just a human, but a barbarian, the very legend they discounted mere moments ago, now standing as a living, breathing menace. Our protagonist, oblivious to their fear, looks back at his fellow barbarians, then faces the stunned group, thinking to himself that he merely wanted a break from his own kind, and instead stumbled upon outsiders in the middle of nowhere. Our protagonist, Ashen, with a smirk and his barbarian might on full display, muses to himself about his good luck running into someone out here in the middle of nowhere, just as his title Ashen Barbarian Ketai is revealed. He then addresses the merchant's guard, calmly saying pleased to meet you before casually asking if they are, in fact, merchants, with one nervous guard barely managing a yes. With the same casual demeanor, Ashen turns his attention to the armed men, inquiring if they are the hired guards, which they confirm, still looking completely on edge from his sudden appearance. Ashen, with a knowing look, advises them to turn back, though he quickly adds that he highly doubts they will, hinting at the stubbornness or commitment that brought them to this desolate place. His sharp senses immediately pick up on the carriage's occupant, as he calmly deduces that there's someone inside, just as we catch a glimpse of Milfina looking out, shocked by their encounter. Then, with a truly mischievous grin, Ashen delivers an unexpected twist, declaring that he too would like to be hired, completely catching the entire group off guard with his brazen proposal. The guards are absolutely flabbergasted, their faces a mix of terror and utter confusion, as they collectively blurt out what, unable to process the barbarian's request. Ashen, now with a confident, almost arrogant pose, asks if his request was unclear, then clarifies that he is offering to help them cross this treacherous wasteland, emphasizing his capability. The lead guard, still sweating bullets, nervously processes the idea of a legendary barbarian actually wanting to join their ranks, timidly asking if he's truly not hostile, his voice laced with apprehension. Ashen simply grins, his expression radiating immense power, and bluntly states that if he were hostile, they'd all be dead already, unequivocally confirming his strength and peaceful, albeit unconventional, intentions for now. The lead guard, still reeling from Ashen's blunt honesty, nervously turns to his captain, whispering his name, clearly seeking direction on how to handle this unexpected, powerful barbarian. Inside the carriage, Milfina, her eyes wide with concern, asks the old man if he heard the commotion, and upon his confirmation, she anxiously wonders what's going on outside. The captain reports the barbarian's audacious request, telling someone unseen that Ashen wants to be hired as a mercenary, then anxiously asks for their decision on the matter. The old man, visualizing a powerful Ashen emanating a purple aura, contemplates the outcome of fighting him and quickly concludes that such a confrontation would be disastrous, advising against it. Milfina, with a look of surprise and determination, makes the decision to accept the barbarian's terms, agreeing to hire him for their dangerous journey. The captain, receiving the decision from the carriage, solemnly accepts the command, acknowledging the risky choice to employ the enigmatic barbarian. The captain approaches Ashen, his guards standing stiffly behind him, and informs the barbarian that the woman in the carriage has agreed to his terms, accepting his offer to be hired. Ashen, with a wide, confident grin, expresses his satisfaction, clearly pleased that his audacious proposal has been accepted, marking a surprising turn of events. The captain and his accompanying guard are taken aback by Ashen's cheerful reaction, their faces a mixture of surprise and slight unease at his casual demeanor. Suddenly, Ashen takes a confident stride forward, his imposing figure looming over the visibly startled captain, who recoils in shock, completely caught off guard by the barbarian's sudden movement. Ashen, with a chilling smirk, leans over the terrified captain, telling him to relax since he's just the hired help, then demands to speak with the one in charge face to face. The captain, sweating profusely, tries to muster some courage, warning Ashen not to try anything. But Ashen cuts him off with an even more menacing smile, promising that if he dares, he'll live to regret it. Ashen then calmly turns his gaze forward, while the captain stands silently in the background, defeated and wary, understanding the immense power he's up against. A panicking guard asks the captain if it's truly safe to let this barbarian meet their lady, but the captain, with a heavy heart, confirms that the employer has already given her consent. Another guard tries to argue, insisting that as mercenaries, they should at least attempt to stop him, but the futility of his words is palpable. Ashen, his powerful back to them, radiates a subtle purple aura, casually dismissing their concerns as utterly ridiculous, making it clear no one can stop him. Inside the carriage, the old man frantically tries to restrain Milfina, who is moving towards the door, but she calmly tells him to stay composed. With wide, intense eyes, Milfina then asks a booming "May I come in?" from within the carriage, her voice startling the old man into a fresh wave of panic. With a composed expression, Milfina grants Ashen permission to enter, giving a clear and decisive "yes, come in," signaling a direct confrontation is imminent. Ashen, with a confident, almost playful smirk, looks ready to enter the carriage, his powerful presence still dominating the snowy landscape as he prepares to meet Milfina face to face. Inside the carriage, Ashen is already seated, remarkably composed, as the old man, completely beside himself with terror, screams at him not to lie, while Ashen calmly assures him he means no harm. Milfina, wide-eyed and stunned, silently processes the shocking reality: a barbarian from the legends, dismissed as mere myth, is now sitting right in front of her. With a slight tremor in her voice, Milfina manages to greet Ashen, expressing that it's a pleasure to meet him, to which Ashen confidently returns the sentiment, while the old man continues to cower in terror. Ashen observes the surprising warmth inside the carriage, musing that it's unusually strong for an indoor space in a snowy plain, and Milfina confirms his suspicion, explaining that it's all thanks to magic. Ashen's eyes widen with genuine curiosity, asking if it truly is magic, a clear indication of his deep interest in this fantastical world he now inhabits, while Milfina looks on with a touch of surprise. Looking out at the perilous snowfields, Ashen warns Melfina that the region is incredibly dangerous and her current mercenaries stand no chance, then boldly declares that he will be the one to protect their lives. Melfina and the old man react with a mix of surprise and apprehension as Ashen, with a serious shift in demeanor, then states that there is one crucial condition for his protection. Melfina, maintaining a calm gaze despite the tension, asks Ashen to state his condition and reveal what it is he truly desires. Ashen, with a confident smile, reveals his condition. He desires knowledge of the world outside these snowfields, specifically the information that Melfina and her group possess. Melfina, looking slightly apprehensive but composed, repeats Ashen's condition, acknowledging that he desires knowledge of the world beyond the snowfields. Ashen, with a confident smirk, affirms his request, telling her it's a fantastic deal for her and her crew, considering the dangers he can protect them from. Melfina, with a subtle look of resignation, silently wonders if she even has a choice in the matter, before calmly agreeing to his terms. Ashen, pleased with her acceptance, gives a charming smile, while the old man in the background is absolutely losing his mind in silent horror, as Ashen asks for her name. Melfina, with a composed expression, introduces herself as Melina of House Akasha, formally stating her full name. Ashen, now revealing his true barbarian name, Katai, returns her introduction with a massive, toothy grin, stating he looks forward to working with her, cementing their unlikely alliance. The scene shifts to a flashback, showing a desk cluttered with games and fantasy books, as Ashen's inner monologue recalls his previous life, where he constantly yearned for a world of magic, only to wake up one day as a barbarian in a snowfield. He remembers the sheer brutality of his new existence, with no time to question how he got there, just an endless, freezing cold and monstrous creatures all around him, emphasizing the harsh reality of his new world. To survive, he quickly rose to lead his tribe, relentlessly hunting and desperately holding on amidst the unforgiving snowfield, recalling the countless battles he's fought against colossal beasts like polar bears. For countless years, he has fought tirelessly, striving with every fiber of his being to escape this dreadful, never-ending snowfield, but something, an unseen force, has always held him back, and his escape has never truly come. The invisible barrier preventing Ashen's escape from the snowfield is revealed as a glowing quest prompt, taunting him with, "Quest incomplete, you can leave the snowfield upon quest completion," confirming he's trapped until he finishes it. He couldn't leave the snowfield because of this unknown force, and just as he was about to give up hope, outsiders, like these armored knights on horseback, started appearing, sparking a new thought about the world beyond. That's when it hit him, the incredible truth: the world beyond this dreadful snowfield was the very world of fantasy and magic he had longed for, a vibrant, magical landscape he could now see from the cliff's edge. From that moment on, his entire perspective changed, and he began to fight not just for survival, but with purpose, undertaking quests like hunting this massive winged lizard within a strict time limit. With a powerful purple aura surrounding him, Ashen absolutely thrashes the monsters, completing quest after quest with the single-minded determination to finally break free from this snowfield and explore the world he yearned for. Back in the carriage, Ashen reflects on how precious information from outside the snowfield is, especially since most people he's encountered only react with hostility, but Melfina offers a welcome change, engaging him in actual conversation, which is a rare, pleasant surprise. Suddenly, Ashen states with certainty that they're transporting weapons, completely catching Melfina off guard, as she gasps, wondering how he possibly knew that. Ashen, with a knowing look, explains his sharp senses picked up the distinct clang of steel from the wagons, a sound impossible to miss if you're paying attention. Melfina confirms Ashen's suspicion about war, revealing that the Empire and the Kingdom are currently clashing, which leads Ashen to conclude that the outside world isn't as peaceful as he might have hoped. She elaborates that the massive empire is relentlessly pushing forward with overwhelming numbers and supplies, but the kingdom is holding its ground, all thanks to the valiant efforts of a powerful swordmaster and a legendary hero defending their borders. Ashen, visibly intrigued by the mention of a swordmaster and a hero, asks what kind of incredible powers they wield, clearly fascinated by this new information from the outside world. Melfina, noticing his unfamiliarity, asks if he's perhaps new to the concept of mysteries, to which Ashen frankly replies that he's never been outside the snowfield, explaining his limited knowledge. Melfina, with a slight smile, admits she doesn't know all the intricate details herself, but she's ready to share what she does know. She begins by explaining the existence of a power known as mystery, which only a very small number of people can sense or use, and these individuals are categorized into 5 ranks of strength, with the third rate being those who can merely sense its presence. Next, she describes the second rate, individuals who have advanced beyond sensing and can actually begin to utilize the power of mystery. Then comes the first rate, formidable individuals who can manifest the power of mystery as mana or aura, a rank typically held by powerful knights, mages, and spirit summoners. Beyond that, the ranks become meaningless, as they refer to transcendent beings, individuals who have surpassed human comprehension, capable of dominating and freely wielding mystery to split the heavens and the earth, a rank to which the legendary sword master belongs. And finally, there is the hero, a truly legendary existence, a monster who has gone beyond the domination of mystery to influence the world itself. Melfina concludes by explaining that merely having one's strength quantified and named is proof of immense power, highlighting that even a third-rate individual is considered incredibly powerful in a smaller domain. Suddenly, Ashen, his eyes gleaming with intense determination, declares that he wants to meet these powerful individuals, completely catching Melfina off guard and leaving her speechless. Ashen, still inside the carriage, reflects on his past, admitting he can't even remember how long he's been trapped in this snowfield, his only focus for years being pure survival. He looks out at the endless snow, then at the vibrant fantasy world beyond, confirming that all he knew was this snow, the monsters, and the unseen power holding him here, intensifying his desperate desire to escape this white prison. A determined smirk crosses Ashen's face as he adamantly reaffirms his inner resolve. He simply must get out of this place, no matter what it takes. The carriage continues its bumpy journey through the snow, as Melfina's voice cuts through the quiet, directly asking Ashen if he is, in fact, a barbarian. Ashen, cool and collected, confirms her suspicion, noting that her reaction suggests she was already aware of his legendary existence. Melfina, looking a bit nervous, confirms his observation, explaining that she knew about him because of the old legends. Ashen's eyes widen in genuine surprise, a look of complete bewilderment on his face, as he asks if there's truly a legend about him. Melfina, now looking utterly flustered and surprised herself, realizes he genuinely didn't know about his own legend. Ashen, letting out a laugh, finally understands the story of the Emperor, then casually admits he thought the Emperor was just a madman, completely shocking Melfina with his bluntness. Quickly correcting himself, Ashen dismisses his previous thought, assuring Melfina that her legend is probably correct, adding that beings like the Emperor have indeed come to the snowfield before. Ashen, ever the quick thinker, turns to Melfina and, judging by the sheer number of wagons, astutely deduces they're transporting a massive quantity of weapons, then asks the critical question, why pass through this treacherous snowfield? Melfina, looking downcast and troubled, quietly admits that they desperately need a lot of money, prompting Ashen to press further and ask for what reason. She reveals her family's long history in commerce, how they accumulated immense wealth, only to lose it all to jealous rivals, leaving them heavily in debt, explaining that this perilous journey is their last hope to save their family from utter ruin. Ashen, connecting the dots with impressive speed, deduces that if they're settling a debt with a merchant's journey, they must be planning to sell these weapons to the kingdom, which is currently at war with the Empire, completely shocking Melfina with his insight. He clarifies his reasoning, recalling her earlier comment about the Empire's overwhelming numbers, which logically means the kingdom is starved for weapons, and where there's high demand, prices skyrocket, explaining why this life-threatening journey through the snowfield is worth the risk. Continuing his flawless deduction, Ashen notes that if they're crossing the white snowfield, it must be the only route to the kingdom, and then asks if their territory borders the Empire's, revealing his strategic mind at play. Melfina, now completely stunned by Ashen's acute observations, covers her mouth in disbelief and simply confirms, that's correct, realizing just how incredibly intelligent this barbarian truly is. Her mind is reeling, thinking no way, as she recalls the legends painting barbarians as ignorant savages, making her question everything and nervously ask, "Who are you?" her voice filled with a mixture of fear and profound confusion. The shocking realization hits her with full force, as she silently grapples with the question, is he really a barbarian, her perception of the legendary beasts crumbling before her eyes. Suddenly, with a jarring jolt, the carriage grinds to a halt, sending a powerful shockwave through the air, and the old man inside screams in panic as Ashen is thrown forward, signaling an immediate, dangerous confrontation from outside. As the carriage jolts violently, throwing the old man into a panic, Ashen remains completely unbothered, simply remarking with a smirk that they have uninvited guests. Outside, a massive, menacing black slime monster, oozing with dark energy and glowing red eyes, confronts the terrified guards who stand frozen in the snow, completely outmatched. The guards are absolutely freaking out, yelling in terror, as Melfina, her eyes wide with fear, gasps in shock, identifying the monstrosity as a black slime. Ashen, still calm and collected inside the carriage, simply tilts his head in contemplation and asks if black slime is truly what this creature is called, showing his unfamiliarity. Melfina, barely containing her nerves, confirms that it is indeed a monster documented in their records, and Ashen, intrigued, presses her to tell him more about these records. She explains that many powerful warriors have tried to conquer the White Snowfield, but very few returned alive, and among the horrors documented by those who did, the black slime is the most frequently recorded, then asks if Ashen also knows about it. Ashen, with a cheerful grin and a twinkle in his eye, casually confirms he knows them very well, adding that they're quite chewy and surprisingly edible, making decent snacks. Melfina's jaw practically drops, her face a mask of utter horror and disgust as she stutters, asking if he actually eats those monstrous slimes. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Ashen offers her one, telling her to go catch it if she's thinking of trying it, which sends a visible shiver of revulsion through Melfina. The situation outside rapidly escalates as the guards are overwhelmed, screaming in panic, and the carriage driver yells out, with Melfina, completely terrified, crying out for Kakatinim, as Ashen, unfazed, calmly asks about the honorific. As the guards and driver scream in terror, Ashen, completely unfazed inside the carriage, simply states that he made a contract to protect their lives, but he has no intention of moving unless there's real danger. Melfina, wide-eyed and terrified, looks at Ashen in disbelief, asking what he possibly means by real danger when a monstrous slime is tearing through their defenses. Ashen, with a confident, almost mischievous smirk, casually dismisses the black slime as something the guards can handle themselves, then reveals his true motive: he needs to assess the outside world's current power level. Outside, the menacing black slime lets out a guttural shriek, its body pulsating with a dark purple aura as it lunges at the terrified guards. The lead guard frantically barks orders to his men, yelling "Shield," and one of the guards, bracing himself, shouts "Yes," as they prepare for the devastating impact. The monster crashes into the shield with immense force, sending a shockwave through the snow, as the guards desperately struggle to hold their formation against the relentless assault. The black slime's power is overwhelming, pushing the shield back and causing the guard behind it to cry out in agony, clearly struggling to endure the brutal attack. Another guard, screaming with all his might, bravely leaps into the fray, brandishing a spear and preparing to strike the monstrous slime, determined to turn the tide. He hurls his axe at the black slime, but it simply bounces off the creature's tough exterior, leaving the guard utterly bewildered and questioning what kind of monster this truly is. The black slime, completely unfazed by the attack, roars with renewed ferocity, its glowing red eyes fixed on the guards as it prepares to unleash another devastating blow, once again overwhelming their defenses. The lead guard, eyes wide with fear and determination, quickly barks orders to his men, reminding them that black slimes only move in straight lines, so they need to scatter and coordinate to avoid the next attack. With renewed resolve, the two guards snap to attention, loudly confirming their understanding, and bracing themselves for the next phase of the brutal battle against the monstrous slime. One of the guards, moving with surprising agility, narrowly evades the black slime's next ferocious lunge, demonstrating their quick thinking and tactical response to the monster's predictable movements. He deftly leaps out of the way, his body a blur of motion as the massive creature rushes past, narrowly missing him, proving their new strategy is working. Without missing a beat, the guard unleashes a powerful strike with his spear, landing a blow on the black slime which lets out a pained shriek as its glowing form recoils from the unexpected hit. The black slime roars in fury and pain, its glowing red eyes flaring, but the attack clearly didn't do enough damage to deter the relentless monster. The lead guard, now empowered by a glowing green aura around his sword, courageously charges forward, yelling for his men to keep attacking and not give the creature an inch. With a powerful swing, he brings his glowing sword down on the black slime, the sheer force of his attack cutting through the creature's slimy exterior and making it recoil violently. He quickly realizes that standard attacks aren't enough and shouts to his team to aim for the hidden core inside the monster, as his men collectively roar their understanding. With a powerful, two-handed grip, the lead guard thrusts his glowing green sword into the snowy ground, unleashing a wave of energy that surges outwards, ready to break through the slime's defenses. The powerful energy attack shatters the black slime's core, causing its monstrous purple form to dissolve into mist and leaving behind a single, pulsating red fragment on the snowy ground. The guards erupt in cheers, celebrating their hard-won victory against the black slime, while Melfina watches in surprised relief, and Ashen, still in the carriage, remains completely unfazed, his expression unchanged. Their celebration is cut short as a massive, menacing white wolf monster suddenly lunges from the snowy depths, prompting a guard to scream a desperate warning about the new threat. The guards immediately spring into action, coordinating their attack, with one bravely aiming for the wolf's neck and another swinging an axe, as the fierce beast roars in defiance. After dispatching the wolf, the guards, with purple blood splattered on their weapons, exchange confident remarks, with one musing that the white snowfield isn't as dangerous as rumored, and another suggesting the legends were simply exaggerated. The captain, however, quickly tempers their newfound confidence, sternly reminding them not to let their guard down, as they are not even halfway through their perilous journey. One of the guards, still looking towards the carriage where Ashen waits, expresses his lingering doubts, questioning if the barbarian is truly as strong as the legends claim, suggesting it might all just be Emperor's tales. Ashen, sensing their skepticism, looks out at the freezing landscape and inwardly scoffs, realizing they view him as a mere leech, just the bottom of the food chain in this brutal snowfield. The captain, his brow furrowed with worry, considers their predicament, proposing that at the very least, they should test the barbarian's true skills to confirm his worth. Melfina's voice cuts through, stating she has something to say, while a guard, surprised by the idea of a test, protests, reminding her that as mercenaries risking their lives, fulfilling their contract with her is simply natural. Melfina, with a grateful smile, thanks her guards for accepting the perilous job to cross the white snowfield, acknowledging that everyone else ran off, and without them, her family wouldn't even have a chance to recover from ruin. But one of the guards, looking frustrated, firmly states there's one thing he cannot accept: the barbarian, Ashen, hasn't fought even once during their entire journey. He then boldly asks if he can test whether the barbarian truly deserves such special treatment, clearly challenging Ashen's worth to the team. Melfina, looking apprehensive, questions the nature of this test, sensing the tension and potential danger in the guard's challenge. The old man from the carriage, looking visibly distressed, confesses that he tried to stop the guards from their plan, but they simply wouldn't listen, indicating they are moving forward with the challenge. Ashen, with a knowing smirk, acknowledges their desire to test his skills, stating he doesn't mind, but then quickly adds that it's Ashen, his imposing figure standing tall, dismisses the guards' attempt to question him, instead declaring that they have guests ahead, hinting at an approaching threat. A menacing, unseen entity reveals itself, its glowing red eyes and ominous voice speaking of the frail mortals who have arrived, promising to enjoy them as a rare delicacy, confirming the imminent danger. The guards react with immediate shock and fear, gasping in horror as they realize the terrifying nature of the new threat, completely caught off guard. A monstrous white serpent, with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp fangs, emerges from the snow, taunting the mortals to struggle all they like, as they will ultimately be nothing more than seasoning. As the monstrous serpent looms and taunts, a terrified Melfina screams, clutching her head in overwhelming panic, completely frozen by the sheer terror of the situation. One of the guards, grunting with immense effort and pain, wields his massive axe, trying to hold his ground against the serpent's unseen power, but the blue energy crackling around him hints at his struggle. Suddenly, Ashen steps forward, a powerful purple aura flaring around him, his expression cold and resolute as he declares, "Enough. These people are my guests. Go back, snake." The colossal white serpent, now identified as another barbarian, questions Ashen's presence, asking why he's there and reminding him of the laws of the snowfields and the consequences of straying from his tribe's territory. Ashen, completely unfazed, glares back at the serpent and dismisses its warnings, retorting, "That is none of your concern. Don't be ridiculous," making it clear he bows to no one. The serpent, now enraged, reveals itself as the snake barbarian, unleashing its full power and demanding to know how Ashen dares to give orders to one who boasts unmatched invincibility, setting the stage for an epic clash. With a chilling resolve, Ashen, now glowing with a powerful blue aura, prepares to unleash his own devastating might, declaring that the arrogant snake barbarian needs to be taught a lesson. The snake barbarian roars defiantly, its massive form coiling, as blue energy crackles around it, confirming the immediate, raw power struggle between these two formidable beings. The guards are caught in the crossfire, as one is violently thrown back, covered in a plume of snow and debris, clearly overwhelmed by the sheer force radiating from Ashen's confrontation with the serpent. Then, with a deafening explosion, a massive burst of blue and purple energy erupts from the snow, signifying a catastrophic impact as Ashen's power collides with the formidable snake Barbarian. The colossal impact sends Melfina reeling inside the carriage, her eyes shut tight against the force, as a guard outside desperately cries out for his lady, completely thrown off balance by the sheer power radiating from the clash. Ashen's incredible strength utterly dominates, sending the monstrous snake Barbarian flying through the snow, its body a mangled mess, as Ashen coldly remarks that some types only listen after a good beating. Melfina, still dazed, looks up at Ashen with a mixture of shock and awe, barely able to utter his name, while Ashen, completely calm, tells her he'll finish cleaning up and be right there, his purple eyes gleaming. Inside the carriage, the old man, completely terrified, grovels before Ashen, begging for his life, but Ashen, composed and understanding, assures him it's only natural not to trust a stranger so easily. The old man, still shaken and shivering uncontrollably, lets out a guttural groan, clearly traumatized by the recent events and the chilling power he just witnessed. Ashen then turns his gaze to Melfina, his expression serious as he states there's something he's curious about, completely catching her off guard, causing her to nervously ask him to repeat himself. Ashen, with his sharp intellect, deduces from her retiring speech that she's far more than a mere family agent, then directly asks why someone of her standing would personally embark on such a life-threatening trade journey. Melfina hesitates, then reveals her true identity. She is the first daughter of Lady Beliana, the concubine of Lord Kazakakasha, prompting Ashen to clarify if concubine means a second wife. She confirms this, explaining the tragic story of her mother, who was used and abandoned in a political marriage, unable to secure any real power, a truly pitiful situation, Ashen acknowledges. Melfina then confesses that her mother and she are family in name only, treated like servants, before admitting she didn't mean to reveal so much, and finally stating that she voluntarily undertook this dangerous trade mission herself. Ashen expresses his surprise that Melfina personally undertook such a dangerous mission, and she confirms it, reiterating that despite the life-threatening journey, she chose to come. She explains her resolve, stating that someone needs to set an example, emphasizing her unwavering determination to save her family from ruin. With a knowing smirk, Ashen tells her he sees, calling her quite intelligent, a remark that completely catches Melfina off guard. He continues, adding that she also possesses great ambition and calls her a greedy one, leaving Melfina completely speechless and stunned by his sharp insight. Before Melfina can respond, the old man, who was quiet until now, suddenly lets out a panicked cry, as if reacting to something outside the carriage. The journey is finally over, and the guards, looking up in surprise, announce that they have arrived, their expressions a mix of awe and relief. The carriage has emerged from the desolate snowfield into a vibrant, green landscape, and Melfina expresses her heartfelt thanks to Ashen for his protection during their perilous journey. The old man asks how Ashen plans to return through such dangerous territory, and Ashen confidently explains that once they've sold the weapons, he can simply pass through the empire, as an empty-handed traveler will face far fewer obstacles. Melfina then addresses Ashen, calling him Lord Katai, and he turns to her, a hint of curiosity in his eyes, wondering what she wants to discuss. Melfina asks Ashen to elaborate on his earlier comments, where he called her intelligent and ambitious, clearly wanting to understand his true meaning behind those powerful words. Ashen, with his characteristic directness, answers Melfina, stating he meant exactly what he said about her intelligence and ambition, leaving her utterly speechless by his blunt honesty, while the old man beside her seems equally surprised. Ashen, still speaking with incredible insight, explains to Melfina that her family, once highly renowned, is now on the brink of ruin due to a severe lack of funds, and despite being a concubine's daughter, her personal effort to carve out a path for survival while her family crumbles. Ashen, with his uncanny insight, continues to break down Melfina's true intentions, asking her who her subjects would choose to trust and follow, then cutting straight to the chase by declaring her ultimate goal is to seize control of her family, leaving Melfina completely taken aback by his accurate assessment. Ashen, with a confident, almost challenging smirk, then simply asks Melfina if his sharp assessment of her true ambition to seize control of her family is incorrect, daring her to deny his powerful insights. Melfina, clearly flustered and with a bead of sweat on her temple, internally admits Ashen's assessment is a perfect answer, even as she outwardly tries to deny it with a soft no, showing she's completely exposed by his sharp insight. Ashen, his insight now fully confirmed, confidently declares he was right about Melfina, dismissing her struggle as a timeless tale, explaining that a child of a concubine taking on a perilous challenge to secure the family name is a story as old as time. Melfina stares at Ashen, a look of dawning realization crossing her face as she thinks to herself that this barbarian is genuinely smart, not like all the other self-proclaimed geniuses who are actually just fools. Melfina, her eyes gleaming with a newfound ambition, thinks to herself about the immense power Ashen used to effortlessly defeat the White Snake, pondering what incredible feats she could accomplish if such strength were hers to command, before turning to him and beginning to make a proposition, asking him what he would do if he ever considered leaving the snowfields. Melfina continues her bold proposition, asking Ashen how he would like to join her, a suggestion that clearly takes him by surprise as he looks at her with slightly widened eyes. Ashen, with a polite yet firm tone, declines Melfina's offer to join her, stating he still has crucial matters to attend to, and Melfina, though slightly disappointed, acknowledges his decision. Undeterred by Ashen's refusal, Melfina, her elegant attire hinting at her status and her mind clearly already formulating a new plan, says in that case, as she prepares to make a different kind of offer. With a warm and inviting smile, Melfina offers Ashen a small, ornate piece, instructing him to present it to her family, the Akasha, if he ever decides to venture into the outside world. Ashen, with a confident, almost predatory smile, clarifies that if the item is truly a gift, he will gladly accept it, his chiseled barbarian physique on full display. Ashen, his back to us, looks up towards Lord Keatle and Melfina, graciously thanking the Lord and expressing his hope for them to meet again someday, to which Keatle, with a knowing smile, wholeheartedly agrees. With his goodbyes said and new opportunities respectfully declined, our boy Ashen begins his journey away from the snowy peaks, the crunch of the wagon wheels echoing in the distance as he heads down a path that slowly transitions from a frost-bitten wilderness to a vibrant, green landscape, marking the start of his next great adventure. 5 years fly by in an instant as we're dramatically transported back to the familiar, chilling expanse of the white snowfields, where it's revealed that someone, after all this time, has finally met all the necessary conditions, setting the stage for an epic new development. After completing an astonishing 784 quests and receiving his rewards, the system announces that all conditions have finally been met, granting him permission to leave the unforgiving snowfields. Our boy Ashen has done it. After completing those insane 784 quests and finally getting the green light to leave the harsh snowfields, he's taking his very first step into the true fantasy world he's been dreaming of, a confident smirk on his face as he leaves the past behind. Ashen takes a deep, satisfying breath, closing his eyes to fully immerse himself in the new world, savoring the distinct sense of fresh grass, the nearby river, and the wildlife around him, thinking to himself that these are all fragrances he could never experience in the harsh snowy plains, a wide smile spreading across his face as he concludes that this new environment is truly wonderful, feeling very nice. Ashen, finally free from the frigid prison, triumphantly curses the snowy plain behind him, declaring he never wants to see it again, as he steps onto the lush green grass of a new world. He looks upon the breathtaking, vibrant fantasy world, the one he had always dreamed of, a place of pure wonder and mystery that he thought he could never reach, feeling immense gratitude for surviving his brutal beginning. Now, with newfound freedom, Ashen resolves to fully embrace and enjoy this world, eagerly anticipating the magic, swords, dragons, and elves that await him. He takes his first steps into this vibrant reality, reflecting that his intense desire for this fantasy world was what truly kept him alive through the hellish, brutal years in the snowplain. As he continues his journey, Ashen senses a gathering of miracles nearby, a place of vibrant energy that promises new encounters, as he spots 3 light-glowing elves in the distance. With a beaming smile, Ashen realizes he's stumbled upon a village, thrilled at the prospect of finally reaching a civilized place in this new and wondrous world. He fondly recalls his past attempts to teach his barbarian tribe about shelters, only to be met with blank stares, and now, anticipating his first proper greeting in a civilized village, he wonders how he should introduce himself. Walking with purpose, Ashen debates his first words, whether a simple hello or a more traditional inquiry about the world, ultimately deciding to approach with the refined manners of a gentleman. He sees a group of elf villagers and is completely caught off guard when one of them, with a surprised expression, declares that this vibrant, green forest will be their new home. These happy elf villagers, with bright smiles in their bundles, are clearly overjoyed, having just arrived and found their idyllic new home amidst the lush, sun-drenched forest filled with blossoming flowers. The overjoyed elf villagers, having found their perfect new home, are commanded by their elder to unpack their things, and they enthusiastically cheer, ready to settle into their idyllic forest haven. But the celebration is cut short when a concerned elf approaches the elder, timidly asking, Elder, prompting the wise leader to turn and inquire what the matter is. The young elf, clearly troubled, asks the elder if this chosen location is truly safe, and the elder, confident in his choice, simply replies, "It is." As the other elves begin building their new homes, the elder explains that this is an extremely remote area, a place where humans can never venture, reassuring them of their solitude. However, another elf, carrying a barrel, acknowledges the remoteness but expresses a deeper concern, thinking about the ominous glow of the nearby snowy plains, a place they know harbors immense danger. The elder, gently patting the concerned elf's head, confirms their fears, stating, "You're worried the monsters from the plains might come," as the elf admits the location feels way too close to the treacherous snow. But the elder dismisses their worries, confidently explaining that for thousands of years, nothing has ever emerged from the snowy plains, and to be extra safe, they even placed a powerful barrier, a magical defense so strong it makes legendary monsters seem ordinary, ensuring no outsiders will ever approach them. He further reassures them that even if monsters somehow breach the barrier, it wouldn't matter, because they have the ultimate protection in Her Majesty the Queen, who no monster, no matter how powerful, could ever reach, making them invincible. Unbeknownst to the confident elves, our boy Ashen, a true force of nature, stands nearby, feeling a strange sensation, thinking, feels like something tore, completely unaware he just accidentally shattered their impenetrable barrier. Ashen, completely oblivious to the massive magical barrier he just destroyed, casually walks on, thinking to himself, "Anyway, how far do I have to go?" ready to explore this new world, with the newly vulnerable elf village directly in his path. As Ashen approaches the village, he spots a small, adorable elf child, confirming he's finally stepped into the world he dreamed of. He's totally captivated by the sight of a real elf. Ashen is completely in awe, recognizing this as a true elf, a cornerstone of any fantasy world, and he feels incredibly lucky to encounter one so soon, truly grateful to be alive in this magical place. But the poor elf child is absolutely terrified, whimpering that they're scared and lost, realizing they must have wandered too far from their village, clearly distressed by their predicament. Ashen, in his hulking barbarian form, approaches the tiny, trembling elf child and tries to offer a friendly greeting, simply saying hello, but his towering presence makes him look incredibly intimidating. The poor elf child completely freezes in terror, their eyes wide with sheer horror as they stare up at the intimidating barbarian, utterly paralyzed by fear. And just like that, the tiny elf child faints dead away from fright, overwhelmed by Ashen's imposing appearance. Ashen muses to himself, completely baffled that he couldn't even have a proper conversation before the child suddenly fainted, wondering what to do and considering taking the child back to their village. He then pictures a heartwarming scenario, imagining himself being welcomed as a kind hero by the elves, believing that returning the fainted child will surely earn him their gratitude and respect, given that elves are generally portrayed as gentle and good in mythology. He pictures himself with a smiling child. With a confident and eager smile, Ashen cradles the sleeping elf child, excitedly looking forward to the moment he's welcomed as a benevolent figure by the elf villagers. Ashen's heartwarming welcome fantasy shatters as an elf woman screams, recognizing him not as a hero, but as a terrifying human, instantly accusing him of kidnapping her child. Ashen looks completely bewildered, his expectations completely inverted. Two armed elf men immediately challenge Ashen, demanding to know what he is and how he breached their supposedly impenetrable barrier, confirming Ashen's hero's welcome is definitely not happening. The elf woman continues to wail in horror, reaching out desperately for her child, her screams cementing Ashen as a terrifying abductor in their eyes. The elder, absolutely horrified, questions how a human could possibly be in their remote location, especially after learning their ancient, powerful barrier has been breached, desperately asking where their queen is, only to be told she's currently away on patrol. Ashen tries to explain himself, raising a hand in surrender and stating he's not their enemy, but he's immediately cut off by an elf fiercely threatening to chase him to death if he doesn't return the child, leaving Ashen completely stunned by their hostility. The elder, realizing his location is exposed, is distraught that their ancient elven barrier has been shattered, concluding that the humans who breached it must be fully prepared. The scene then dramatically reveals three ominous, heavily armed figures, confirming his worst fears about being tracked. Ashen looks utterly bewildered, thinking to himself if he really looks like a kidnapper, completely failing to understand why these elves are reacting with such extreme hostility. With a determined glint in his eye, Ashen realizes he needs to quickly clear up this massive misunderstanding, knowing that his hero's welcome has turned into a serious accusation. The elf child, now awake, looks up at Ashen with tearful, trembling eyes, still clearly terrified and confirming their initial fear, despite Ashen's innocent intentions. Ashen, realizing he's only making things worse, gently places the elf child down and tells them to return to their people, hoping to de-escalate the situation, leaving the child looking surprised by his sudden release. The poor elf child, still completely overwhelmed by Ashen's hulking form and glowing eyes, lets out a blood-curdling scream, paralyzed by terror even after being gently placed back on the ground. The child, now hysterical, frantically scrambles away, while the elf parents, their faces twisted in horror, join in the screams, leaving Ashen utterly bewildered, wondering if his face is truly that scary. A bit shocked and utterly confused, Ashen questions his reflection, having believed his appearance was decent enough back in the brutal snowy plains, completely out of touch with how terrifying he looks to others. Ashen, trying to de-escalate the chaotic scene, holds up a hand in a gesture of peace, explaining to the terrified elves that he simply returned the child and is not their enemy, but they are clearly not listening. The elder, ignoring Ashen's attempt at peace, bellows fire, and a volley of glowing green and blue arrows rains down from the sky, bombarding Ashen as he thinks, can they not? Ashen's internal monologue reveals his utter bewilderment, realizing that these elves are far more savage than he ever imagined, completely contradicting the legends of a gentle, peaceful people. He reflects on his preconceived notions of elves as loving nature and seeking peace, then observes their violent aggression, concluding that perhaps it's only natural for a race that lives in the wild to be so ferocious. He rationalizes that nature is a brutal world where only the strong survive, far from peaceful, making their ferocity understandable, a stark contrast to his idyllic fantasy. Arrows continue to ping off Ashen's body, completely harmlessly, as he takes the barrage in stride, thinking to himself, so this is what it's really like. The elves, baffled by Ashen's imperviousness, scream about what kind of artifact he's wrapped in, urging each other to keep attacking because it has to have a limit, completely unaware of the raw power they're facing, as Ashen simply thinks, just. As the elves continue their futile assault, Ashen, his patience wearing thin, finally releases a potent surge of his inner power, a massive purple aura exploding outwards, completely overwhelming his attackers. His unleashed strength manifests as a powerful, spiraling vortex of blue and purple energy, tearing through the forest and creating a massive shockwave that sends everything flying. The elf elder, completely caught off guard by the sudden, overwhelming display of power, stumbles back, dropping his staff and gasping, what is this?" his face a mask of profound shock and terror. Ashen stands calmly in the center of a newly formed crater, his immense power evident in the surrounding destruction, as he reiterates to the stunned elves, "I am not your enemy," trying to de-escalate the chaotic situation. He then makes a playful, apologetic gesture, saying whoops. Maybe I failed to control my strength. As he addresses the terrified elves, still completely oblivious to the scale of his accidental devastation. Suddenly, a massive, fiery spear, wreathed in intense flames, streaks through the air and hurtles straight towards Ashen, an unexpected and powerful attack from an unseen assailant. The fiery spear detonates with incredible force upon impact with Ashen, creating a colossal explosion of light and debris that obliterates everything around it. The elf elder and another elf watch in utter bewilderment and fear, their eyes wide with shock and confusion, completely stunned by the sheer destructive power of the attack. From the sky, Her Majesty, the Queen of the Leaf Clan, Sylvian Repudia, descends with an imposing aura, demanding to know what is happening here, her presence commanding immediate attention and respect. The elf elder, regaining his composure, points an accusing finger towards Ashen and screams to his queen that a human attacked them, clearly painting Ashen as the antagonist in this chaotic scene. Her Majesty, Queen Sylvian Repudia, with a shadow of anger across her face, acknowledges the elder's accusation, then coldly concludes that even this supposedly safe haven has been compromised by human presence, revealing her deep-seated prejudice. Ashen, completely unfazed by the Queen's fiery attack, casually brushes himself off, then calmly asks her to wait and give him a chance to explain himself, still hoping for a peaceful resolution. The Queen and the elder are absolutely dumbfounded, their faces a mask of pure disbelief, unable to comprehend how Ashen could possibly be unharmed after taking a direct hit from Her Majesty's immense power. The Queen, with a look of utter disgust, draws her bow once more, condemning Ashen as a powerful human who dares to target them, and venomously states that humans truly are disgusting. Introducing herself as the Queen of the Leaf Clan, dyed in indigo, she fiercely unleashes another barrage of powerful, fiery arrows at Ashen, promising to make him pay the price for his greed. Ashen, utterly baffled, wonders if the Queen simply can't understand him, despite speaking the same language, then contemplates if she's intentionally ignoring him or if the relationship between humans and elves is just this terrible. Resigning himself to the situation, Ashen recalls a brutal lesson from his time in the tundra. Sometimes, people only listen once you've landed a solid hit, signaling his shift from diplomacy to raw power. Then, with a devastating surge of power, Ashen unleashes a colossal blue energy beam that erupts from the ground, tearing through the air and reaching for the heavens. A monstrous, ethereal blue dragon head, formed from pure energy, manifests around Ashen, towering over him, a terrifying embodiment of the immense power he's about to unleash. With a powerful punch, Ashen sends a massive, radiating burst of purple energy slamming outwards, a direct, undeniable demonstration of his overwhelming strength against the Queen. Ashen's incredible punch connects, unleashing an even greater, blinding explosion of purple and blue energy that ripples outwards, completely dominating the battlefield with his raw power. The Queen is absolutely stunned, blasted backward by the sheer force, screaming in disbelief as Ashen's power rips through the air, sending waves of blue energy far into the distance. Ashen, his expression a mix of slight embarrassment and confusion, sheepishly mutters whoops, realizing he probably overdid it a little, completely unaware of the true devastation he just caused. A massive secondary explosion erupts where the Queen landed, tearing through the forest with incredible force as the elves scream in pure terror, the trees themselves violently thrown into the air. The Queen lies defeated and disheveled amidst the debris, struggling to get up, clearly having been utterly overwhelmed by Ashen's monstrous power, a shocking testament to his strength. Ashen, scratching his cheek, casually wonders if he should have held back even more, completely oblivious to the fact that he just effortlessly took down the Queen of the Leaf Clan. The Queen, still reeling, realizes with dawning horror that Ashen is at least at the transcendent level, a legendary figure, and she desperately wonders why someone of such immense power is even here. Struggling to regain her composure, the Queen, wide-eyed and terrified, orders everyone, get away from here immediately, recognizing the insurmountable threat Ashen poses. The elves, utterly shocked and terrified by their Queen's desperate command, scramble to obey, fleeing in chaotic panic from the sheer power of Ashen, who has unknowingly become their greatest fear. The Queen, gritting her teeth in fury and acknowledging Ashen's undeniable strength, defiantly declares that he will never accomplish his goal here, preparing for what comes next, even in defeat. Ashen, his confusion evident, tries to explain that he was just attempting to talk, reflecting that he has a bad feeling this whole situation has gone completely sideways, especially after blasting the Queen. But the Queen, ignoring his pleas, begins a powerful incantation, her hands glowing with immense energy as she summons a being of primeval purity and pure flame. With a burst of magical power, a majestic, fiery bull-like spirit, named Pigo, manifests before them, its horns blazing, ready to follow its summoner's command. Ashen's eyes light up with unadulterated excitement and wonder, realizing he's witnessing a genuine summon, a stark contrast to the grotesque and bizarre creatures he's encountered in the brutal tundra. He recalls the hideous monsters from his previous life in the tundra, some vaguely fantastical, but mostly just terrifying, reinforcing his appreciation for the beauty of this newly summoned spirit. He marvels at the creature before him, a magnificent bull with horns of blazing fire, a truly fantastical sight unlike anything he's ever seen in his harsh old world. Ashen is absolutely beaming, his eyes sparkling with pure joy and wonder, declaring with utmost delight that this is a real spirit, this is the true fantasy he's always dreamed of. The Queen, her face hardened with grim resolve, gives her summoned spirit, Pigo, a direct and chilling command: annihilate the enemy before you, making her intentions towards Ashen crystal clear. Pigo, the highest grade fire spirit, grumbles about contracts being nothing but a hassle, but the Queen sharply silences it, her frustration evident, ensuring its obedience. The Queen reveals Pigo as a being of pure flame, a spirit so powerful she usually can't summon it alone, having secured a contract with another tribe just to bring it forth, a desperate measure she never thought she'd use, as she sternly commands it to fulfill its contract. Pigo, the magnificent fire spirit, confirms its contract, which is to eliminate the human, Ashen, but as it prepares for battle, a chilling realization washes over it, making it question if this powerful barbarian is even human at all. Pigo, radiating a furious golden aura, its entire body engulfed in flames, charges forward, preparing to unleash its full power against the unsuspecting barbarian. But Ashen, completely oblivious to the spirit's terror or the impending attack, is still utterly enamored, marveling at the summoned beast, thinking to himself that this is the real fantasy he's always dreamed of. His blissful wonder quickly shifts to confusion as he seems to hear something in the distance, a new realization dawning on him that pulls him from his awe. Pigo, now enraged by Ashen's perceived insolence, declares him a pathetic human who dares to covet the races of nature, then vows to reduce him to ash and leave nothing behind, while Ashen looks on with a bewildered expression. With a terrifying roar, Pigo charges, a massive, fiery bull engulfed in blazing inferno, its hooves tearing through the ground as it barrels towards Ashen. But in an instant, Ashen casually catches Pigo's charging horns with a single hand, stopping the immensely powerful fire spirit dead in its tracks, leaving Pigo absolutely stunned and wide-eyed with shock. Ashen, with a confident, almost condescending smirk, remarks that Pigo's beastly form puts him at ease, making it much easier to. With a devastating, blinding flash of power, Ashen unleashes a colossal punch, sending Pigo reeling backward in a massive explosion of light and energy, utterly overwhelming the fire spirit. The sheer force of Ashen's attack creates a massive, destructive shockwave that rips through the forest, leaving a colossal trail of devastation in its wake, completely reshaping the landscape. The sheer force of Ashen's attack on Pigo is so devastating it creates a colossal, mushroom cloud explosion that engulfs the entire landscape, sending waves of pure destruction across the land. A massive, fiery explosion erupts where Pigo was struck, tearing through the ground and sending debris flying everywhere, a testament to Ashen's overwhelming power. The shockwave hits both the queen, who screams in pain, and Ashen, whose purple aura flares as he simply absorbs the impact of his own devastating blow, completely unfazed. The queen, dazed and battered, collapses to her knees, looking utterly bewildered and defeated, gasping, What? What is this? An overhead shot reveals the full scale of the devastation, a massive, perfectly circular crater where the forest once stood, leaving the queen's mind screaming, "This can't be real." Ashen, completely calm and composed, takes a casual step down from the ravaged landscape, slowly approaching the kneeling queen, a silent testament to his incredible power. The queen, her face etched with profound despair and fear, looks down and softly whispers, "Please." She looks up at Ashen's imposing figure, particularly his massive, powerful leg, and desperately pleads, "Spare my kin." Ashen, towering over the defeated queen, states with a calm and surprisingly gentle voice, "I'm not your enemy, ELF." The queen, completely taken aback by his words, looks up at him with wide, shocked eyes and stutters, "What?" After a long intense conversation, the elves, led by their queen, slowly but surely come to the shocking realization that Ashen truly isn't their enemy, finally accepting his genuine intentions. The queen, humbled by Ashen's overwhelming power and his patient explanation, bows her head in sincere apology, admitting they judged him too hastily and committed a grave insult by mistaking the one who returned their child for an enemy, her conscience clearly weighing heavily on her. Ashen, with a gentle smile, assures the remorseful queen that it's fine, understanding that their mistrust stemmed from being driven by other humans, but he can't help feeling a little sad that they never gave him a chance to explain himself. The queen, still grappling with his presence, tentatively asks if he's truly not one of the humans chasing them, to which Ashen replies that this is his first time ever seeing an elf, as there simply aren't any in the White Wasteland where he came from. Her Majesty gasps, utterly bewildered by the mention of the White Wasteland, then her eyes widen as she hears his true identity, the Ashen Barbarian of the Wasteland, a name Ashen casually confirms is what outsiders call him. The queen is completely stunned, stammering, impossible, unable to fathom that humans could even survive in such a desolate and dangerous place like the White Wasteland, let alone emerge from it. Still reeling from the revelation, the queen looks at Ashen with growing concern, asking a critical question: if he came from the wasteland, does that mean others could come out of it too, sparking new fears for her people's safety? Ashen shrugs, replying, "Who knows? I doubt anyone else would," then internally reflects on the truly monstrous beings, like the White Serpent, that guard the wasteland, and how only he was able to pass them due to a rare hidden quest, making his escape unique. The queen breathes a sigh of relief at Ashen's reassuring words, then, remembering her fiery summoned spirit, nervously asks if her summon is okay, betraying a hint of concern for Pigo. Ashen, with a slightly sheepish and awkward grin, casually admits, "That bull. I did split it in half," completely understating the immense power he just unleashed on her mighty summoned spirit. The queen breathes a sigh of relief, explaining that spirits, as beings of nature, simply return to the spirit realm when unsummoned, then reflects on her own words, asking, "A spirit?" Humbled and apologetic for her rude behavior, the queen looks directly at Ashen, offering him anything he desires, stating she will do whatever she can to make amends. Ashen, still captivated by the magical encounter, quietly muses to himself, "A spirit, huh?" Pondering this new aspect of the fantasy world. His curiosity piqued, Ashen puts a hand to his chin and asks the queen if beings other than elves, like himself, can form contracts with spirits. The queen's expression turns solemn as she reluctantly replies that such a thing, for non-elves, might not be possible. She clarifies that while rare humans with a deep affinity for nature can sometimes form contracts, it is generally considered impossible, confirming Ashen's initial fears. However, a flicker of hope appears as the queen suggests a mystical place called Elfo Sagrado for those truly seeking a spirit contract, catching Ashen's full attention as he repeats the name, intrigued. The queen explains that Elfo Sagrado is the holy land where the god of the elves resides, suggesting that there, it might be possible for him to find what he seeks. Ashen, still conscious of his daunting barbarian appearance, nervously points to himself and asks if a human like him would even be allowed into such a sacred elven land. The queen, now trusting Ashen, assures him that while normally impossible, with her introduction, he would be granted entry, but only if he promises to keep the sacred location a complete secret. The queen elaborates on Elfo Sagrado, the holy land of the elves, describing it as the dream destination for every elf researcher, a place of immense spiritual significance. She then cautions Ashen, emphasizing that for elves, letting a human near such a sacred place is incredibly dangerous, a risk taken only to protect something more precious than life itself. Despite the inherent danger, the queen, holding a glowing red crystal, tells Ashen that she wants to believe in him, a rare act of trust from an elf towards a human. With a gesture of profound trust, she offers the glowing crystal to Ashen, instructing him to take it, and Ashen, with a polite smile, gratefully accepts the precious gift. However, she adds a solemn warning that even if he gets close, their god may still test him, hinting at the true challenges that await in the Holy Land. Still, with a hopeful smile, the queen wishes him luck, expressing her belief that he possesses the strength to pass any trial, and Ashen, returning her gaze, simply thanks her. She then formally introduces herself as Marzelia Haitian Karuja, the queen of the Leaf tribe, asking Ashen for his name in return. Ashen, with a confident and almost charming smile, finally reveals his true identity, stating, "I am Keetle. Keetle the Barbarian." Then, with an explosive surge of power, Ashen launches himself into the air, tearing through the very ground and shattering stone with his immense strength. He becomes a blur, soaring high above the vibrant green forest, propelled by a dazzling trail of blue energy, as he rockets towards his next adventure, leaving the elves stunned. As Ashen rockets towards his next adventure, a massive tremor rocks the border of the Varkan territory, Kingdom of Gehent, sending guards into a panic as they scream about something rapidly approaching, completely caught off guard by the sheer force of his arrival. The head guard of Varkan territory, his face etched with alarm, frantically barks orders to sound the bell and call all guards to arms, sensing an unprecedented threat is about to breach their defenses. An overhead view reveals the source of the commotion, a colossal plume of dust and debris erupting from the forest directly outside the kingdom's walls, a clear sign of Ashen's incredibly powerful, and probably not so subtle, landing. Emerging from the dissipating dust, Ashen stands tall and imposing, his powerful barbarian physique radiating raw strength, completely unbothered by the dramatic entrance he just made. The guards, now face to face with the terrifying presence, recoil in absolute horror, their faces a mask of pure disbelief as one of them barely manages to stammer, "Why you're..." Ashen, completely oblivious to their terror, offers a friendly, albeit intimidating, grin, asking, Are you guards?" "Nice to meet you," his towering figure making the heavily armed men look like children. Two guards nervously eye each other, trembling as they piece together the puzzle, realizing with dawning horror that the earth-shattering noise they heard moments ago was caused by this incredibly powerful individual. Ashen looks on with a slightly confused expression, as one of the guards, his eyes wide with recognition, focuses on his distinctive ash-gray hair, a feature from a legendary figure. The guard's eye twitches, a bead of sweat running down his temple, as he notices a telltale scar on Ashen's chest, and the horrifying realization hits him like a blizzard, in a way. The memory flashes, showing Ashen standing in the desolate snow of the White Wasteland, as the terrified guard finally whispers the legendary name, the Ashen Barbarian? As the terrified guard finally recognizes the legendary name, our boy Ashen, completely oblivious to the fear he inspires, simply takes another casual step forward, his fur-lined boots crunching softly on the lush green grass. But the guards, having identified him, are now absolutely frantic, yelling for him to stop and threatening to attack if he takes another step, their swords drawn and bodies shaking with pure terror. Ashen, ever the calm one, raises a hand in a peaceful gesture, gently telling them to relax and assuring them he's not their enemy, though his hulking figure still radiates an intimidating power. One of the guards, still trembling but trying to sound brave, points his sword at Ashen and demands to know what he wants from them, his voice laced with apprehension. Ashen, with a confident smirk, simply points directly at the imposing fortress wall, sparkling with an almost innocent glow, his intentions still a complete mystery to the terrified guards. The guards are utterly bewildered, staring at the massive wall and wondering what on earth he could possibly want with it, their minds racing to understand his strange actions. Ashen, still pointing confidently, then calmly states that he'd like to visit their territory, completely catching the guards off guard with his casual request. The guards look at each other, their faces a mixture of confusion and pure disbelief, unable to process the barbarian's audacious request to simply visit their heavily guarded territory. Now, somehow inside and seated at a table, Ashen explains his intentions more clearly, stating that he wants to pass through their territory, and if possible, he'd like to stay a while, though he's not sure for how long. The guard at the table, still looking utterly confused, processes the request to stay a while, then asks Ashen for his name, to which our boy confidently replies, "It's Keatle." The guard, still very cautious, asks if Keatle has anyone who can verify his identity or any form of ID, but our boy, being a wild barbarian from the Wasteland, simply states that he has absolutely no such thing. Keatle lets out a simple "ah" as a beautiful woman with light blue hair, wearing an elegant white cloak, extends a gleaming, ornate key-like piece to him, telling him to show it to House Akasha if he ever visits them later, as Keatle carefully takes the mysterious item into his armored hand. Keatle, holding the ornate, star-shaped pendant that was given to him, looks bewildered, questioning why this beautiful and seemingly important item isn't enough to verify his identity. The guard, utterly taken aback by the glowing, ornate pendant Keatle is holding, stares with wide eyes and a look of disbelief, questioning what on earth that mysterious object is. Keatle explains that the glowing object is the crest of House Akasha, telling the guard he received it from someone in that powerful bloodline, which makes the guard realize they're talking about the influential merchant family from the Denian kingdom. The guard, clutching the crest, pieces together the puzzle, thinking about the mysterious figure who came from the White Wastelands years ago. Our boy Keatle, sensing the recognition, asks if the guard knows the family, and the guard confirms that House Akasha has surged in prominence and power ever since a new head took over a few years prior. With the guard's recognition of the Akasha crest, Ashen asks if it's enough to verify his identity, but the guard, still carefully inspecting the emblem, admits it doesn't look fake, yet it's impossible to confirm as it's not from the kingdom of Gehentra. Despite the crest not being fully verifiable, the guard acknowledges its usefulness, informing Ashen that he's allowed to enter the kingdom, but with one crucial condition that could change everything. Ashen, his eyes wide with surprise, repeats, a condition, clearly taken aback by the guard's unexpected demand for entry into the kingdom. The head guard, stern-faced and resolute, lays out the critical condition for Ashen's entry, stating that they need absolute confirmation he isn't a threat, and Ashen, still processing, wonders if they're talking about a party. The guard clarifies the condition, revealing there are 3 other individuals also seeking entry whose identities are similarly unclear, and the task for all of them is to form a party and clear a dungeon near the domain. Ashen, processing this, looks thoughtful and a little smug, realizing a party as a condition might actually be easier than he initially thought. Ashen, his initial relief visible, readily accepts the challenge, his face breaking into a confident smile, only for his good mood to be instantly cut short as the guard immediately drops another bomb, stating there's one more condition. The guard clarifies the second crucial condition for Ashen, explaining that after he clears the dungeon, he must report every single detail of what transpired inside, making sure no secrets are kept from the kingdom. The guard, clearly surprised and rethinking his previous assumptions, looks at Ashen with a skeptical expression, muttering that it's not exactly what he expected. Then, with doubt etched on his face, he directly asks Ashen if he is truly a barbarian, questioning our boy's identity despite the crest. With a confident smirk, Ashen stands tall, asserting his identity with a clear and resounding, "I am a barbarian," confirming all suspicions and leaving no room for doubt about his powerful presence. The head guard's eyes widen in disbelief, his mind reeling as he processes Ashen's shocking confession, the old prejudices about barbarians being nothing but brute, mindless creatures clashing hard with the eloquent and composed figure standing before him. The guard, now clearly impressed by Ashen, admits he's never met a barbarian quite like him. After a quick throat clear, he signals that it's time to end their discussion and get things moving, ushering Ashen forward into the kingdom. A self-proclaimed paladin named Alessandro Tyrannus lets out a disgusted groan, scoffing at the idea of even following the law if it means diving into a dungeon filled with what he calls mere rats who only target people's money, clearly finding the whole situation beneath him and utterly tragic. A new character, the thief Kazanhark, looks completely fed up, glaring with an angry snarl as he asks the old man why he's picking a fight again. He even throws a provocative jab, wondering if the old man is still upset because a thief, perhaps Kazan himself, scammed him out of his fortune. The paladin, Alessandro Tyrannus, is absolutely livid, screaming that Kazan is a bastard and daring a petty thief to insult a paladin, completely losing his composure over the thief's taunts. Kazan, the thief, with a smug, almost mocking grin, retorts, "Paladin my ass," questioning if that's truly how paladins dress these days and scoffing that a real one wouldn't be caught dead here, calling Alessandro just a wandering warrior pretending to be a paladin. Alessandro's jaw clenches, his eyes burning with pure fury as Kazan's words hit home, calling him a bottom feeder just like himself, pushing the paladin to his absolute breaking point. Kazan, relishing the paladin's distress, continues his verbal assault by openly mocking Alessandro's surname, asking Tyrannus, "What kind of dumbass surname is that?" further fueling the paladin's rage. Completely enraged, Alessandro, with a furious scream, draws his sword, looking ready to cut Kazan down where he stands, unable to tolerate another single insult. Kazan, still chillingly calm and wearing a mischievous smirk, provocatively asks Alessandro, "Wanna go?" then coolly mocks his ragged armor, questioning if it can even protect him. Just as things are about to explode, a new figure, a gentle cleric, steps between them, letting out a frustrated sigh as she timidly asks the two bickering men to please stop. This new character, Hayes, a cleric of Kalosia, expresses her inner turmoil, lamenting that she has to raid a dungeon with these two hotheads, wondering if any of this will actually be okay. The trio stands together, revealing that a dungeon party requires a minimum of 4 members, and they're still waiting for one more person to arrive before they can proceed. Finally, a guard announces the arrival of the last party member, and Kazan, with a hopeful yet sarcastic smirk, mutters that he just praised this newcomer is actually sane, before the guard simply tells him to see for himself. Kazan's wish for a sane newcomer is hilariously crushed as our boy Ashen makes his entrance, towering over everyone, his sheer presence causing immediate apprehension as the existing party members are completely taken aback. Ashen, completely oblivious to their fear, flashes a bright, friendly smile and casually asks if these are his new party members, radiating an almost comical innocence. The paladin is utterly bewildered by Ashen's colossal size, while the cleric nervously questions if this imposing figure is even human, and Kazan the thief is visibly overwhelmed by the sheer pressure radiating from him. Still beaming with that disarming, yet intimidating, grin, Ashen cheerfully repeats, "Nice to meet you," extending a friendly greeting despite the palpable fear in the room. He then casually tells them to introduce themselves and talk amongst each other, explaining that he'll return shortly, and with that, he steps away, leaving the stunned trio to process his overwhelming presence. As Ashen steps back into the room, he takes charge, declaring it's time for introductions, and with a confident, almost proud smile, he states, "I am a barbarian." Keatle, dropping his true identity like a bombshell. Kazan, visibly startled by the barbarian's direct gaze, quickly introduces himself as Kazanhark, a thief, his usual bravado completely subdued by Keatle's intensity. Alessandro, trying to regain his composure, clears his throat and proudly introduces himself as a paladin, Alessandro Tyrannus, prompting Keatle to immediately ask if he uses holy power, showing his direct curiosity about magic. Alessandro nervously explains that he's a special paladin who, unfortunately, can't use holy power, a revelation Keatle takes in stride, simply replying, "HM. I see," his expression a mix of understanding and perhaps a hint of disappointment. Hayes, the cleric, then introduces herself as a servant of the god of lies and deceit, making her identity quite unique, which Keatle calmly acknowledges, greeting her with a simple, "A cleric, huh? Nice to meet you," still incredibly polite despite the bizarre revelations. Ketel, still incredibly polite despite the bizarre revelations, looks at Hayes and asks if, even as a cleric, her identity is uncertain. Hayes, looking downcast, explains that because the god she serves is Kaloja, the god of lies and deceit, his followers are naturally not well regarded, which is why her identity is uncertain. Ketel simply responds with a guard, standing by an archway, then announces that if everyone is ready, it's time for them to head out. With a slight shock of arrival, the party, including Ketel, has reached their destination, a mysterious dungeon, as Ketel lets out a curious. The full party stands before the glowing, ominous entrance to the dungeon, ready to begin their mission. They are informed that it's a 3-floor dungeon and that the monsters lurking inside are all undead, giving them crucial intel before they delve in. Ketel listens intently, a confident smirk on his face, as the guard gives the final instructions: clear the dungeon and return with proof of their success. Ketel, eager to start, turns to Kazan, the thief, and asks if he can get the plan, completely surprising Kazan with his directness. With a hearty laugh, Ketel tells Kazan to drop the. Kazan, flustered by Ketel's hearty laugh, clears his throat and sheepishly restarts, stammering, ahem. Then, as he prepares to lay out the dungeon strategy. Kazan outlines the plan: Ketel and the warrior will form the front lines, Hayes will check for traps, and Kazan will provide support from the rear with his various abilities, ensuring their survival in the dungeon. Ketel confidently confirms he understood the plan, his easy acceptance making Kazan let out a nervous, almost forced chuckle, clearly still intimidated by his new barbarian party member. With a confident and booming voice, Ketel takes charge, declaring, "All right then, let's move out," leading his new, somewhat uneasy, party directly into the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, it's oppressively dark, making it impossible to see. Hayes, the cleric, notes the unsettling lack of traps, finding the normalcy suspiciously eerie, and Kazan agrees, feeling a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, Kazan stops, putting a hand on Ketel's shoulder and whispering, "Hold on." Monsters, even though Ketel, looking around, can't see anything, perplexed by the thief's sudden warning. Ketel then points to scattered bone fragments on the floor, declaring them to be skeletons, and warns that if they get any closer, these undead monsters will rise and attack, his keen senses already picking up the impending danger. Kazan's eyes narrow in fury as he realizes the bitter truth: the guard captain knew all along. This dungeon isn't just for verifying their identities, but from the beginning, it was a sinister tool to easily dispose of troublesome outsiders. Ketel looks thoughtful, repeating, "Skeletons, you say?" Clearly processing this new information about the dungeon's inhabitants and their nature. Kazan elaborates on the threat, explaining that skeletons are formidable monsters, capable of relentless pursuit even if they're severely wounded or have their limbs completely severed, painting a grim picture of their relentless nature. Kazan realizes the skeletons aren't just relentless but also tough, making this dungeon much harder than expected. He immediately barks orders for Hayes to get her powers ready, the warrior to raise his shield, and Ketel to prepare for battle. Kazan continues his rapid-fire briefing, detailing that skeletons are tough, move even when damaged, and their weak spot is the neck, requiring multiple hits, and he plans to aim for openings in the fight. Ketel, impressed by Kazan's leadership, simply gives a confident "got it." With a resounding "alright," Ketel takes a decisive step forward, his boot falls echoing in the darkness as the dormant skeleton springs to life, its ancient bones cracking and glowing ominously, ready to strike. Ketel, completely unfazed by the sudden activation of the monster, simply lets out a calm "ho," a subtle acknowledgement of the threat, his eyes gleaming with a hint of curiosity. The skeleton lunges, its glowing sword slicing through the air, forcing the warrior to quickly raise his shield while Hayes begins a desperate prayer, a golden aura emanating from her. Meanwhile, Kazan, ever the opportunist, positions himself to strike with his knife. As the skeleton closes in, Ketel, moving with lightning speed, raises his hand, a faint but powerful glow already forming around his palm. Then, with a furious roar, Ketel unleashes a devastating punch, a colossal burst of blue energy exploding outwards, sending shockwaves through the dungeon and utterly annihilating whatever stood in his path. Ketel stands calmly amidst the swirling dust and energy, his hands still faintly glowing, a look of mild surprise on his face as he surveys the area, silently processing the aftermath of his own overwhelming power. The rest of the party is utterly flabbergasted, their jaws literally on the floor as they scream in unison, completely shocked by the barbarian's raw, unbridled power. Keatle, a proud smirk spreading across his face, lets out a satisfied ho, and turns to Kazan, confirming that indeed, just as the thief said, the skeleton stops moving once you take its head off. Kazan, completely flabbergasted by Keatle's literal interpretation of his words, lets out a nervous laugh and clarifies that taking the head off was not exactly what he meant by stopping a skeleton. He launches into an internal monologue, explaining that skeletons are formidable creatures with incredibly tough bones, requiring skilled warriors to sever their vertebrae, or for a transcendent warrior, precise attacks using aura, as he muses that he knew Keatle was strong, but never imagined this level of overwhelming power. The entire party stares at Keatle, who stands innocently amidst the lingering dust of the pulverized skeleton, their faces a mixture of pure terror and disbelief as they question if this monster of a man is truly human. Keatle, oblivious to their fear, flashes a confident smile and cheerfully declares, "Well then. Let's keep going, ready for more action." Kazan, Hayes, and the warrior are completely flustered, practically tripping over themselves as they scramble to keep up, Hayes frantically yelling, "Why yes. Right away," as Keatle strides forward. Keatle calmly tells them there's no need to rush, but the terrified trio, still reeling from his previous display of power, silently screams their refusal, thinking, "I don't want to die here." As Keatle walks ahead, the rest of the party is left reeling, calling his name, their faces a mixture of fear and bewilderment, struggling to comprehend his power. Suddenly, from the scattered bones on the dungeon floor, new skeletons begin to stir and reanimate, their dry limbs cracking as they rise, ready for another confrontation. Hayes screams about the skeletons, while Kazan, his face grim, confirms, this time, they're coming, as the warrior braces himself for the approaching horde. But just as the tension mounts, Keatle casually turns to his terrified party and asks, "Could I ask a favor?" leaving them utterly dumbfounded and confused by his unexpected request in the middle of a dungeon. Building on his unexpected request, Keatle confidently tells his terrified party he'll handle all the incoming skeletons himself, revealing he has something he wants to test out, leaving Kazan and Hayes nervously agreeing to his bold claim. With a satisfied smirk and glowing purple eyes, Keatle simply says thanks, his mysterious intentions making his party members even more uneasy. The rest of the party, now utterly bewildered and terrified, watch Keatle with wide eyes, wondering just what in the world he's planning to do on his own. Keatle, a mischievous grin spreading across his face, excitedly snaps his fingers and marvels at the skeleton, wondering aloud how such a fascinating thing is put together. As the skeleton, now fully reanimated and glowing with ominous blue energy, lunges at him with its sword, Keatle crouches low, ready to face the undead threat head-on. But with blinding speed, Keatle effortlessly parries the skeleton's glowing sword with his bare hand, blue energy crackling around the impact, his powerful purple aura beginning to flare. Keatle, now fully enveloped in a powerful purple glow, stares down the skeleton, casually asking what it plans to do now that its attack has been so easily nullified. The skeleton, completely taken aback by Keatle's overwhelming power, stumbles backward, its glowing sword momentarily useless against the barbarian's raw strength. With a determined glint in his eye, Keatle prepares to unleash another devastating attack, his body radiating immense blue energy as the skeleton recoils, clearly outmatched. In a flash, Keatle seizes the skeleton's sword hand, his powerful grip leaving the undead creature completely helpless as he prepares to finish the fight, again. Keatle, still holding the skeleton's arm, observes the strange glowing effect, a clear sign of the undead's mystical nature. But in a shocking move, the skeleton quickly switches its sword to its other hand, leaving Keatle, and us, completely baffled by its unexpected intelligence. With newfound determination, the skeleton lunges once more, its glowing sword now held in its free hand, demonstrating its surprising adaptability in battle. Keatle, a confident grin spreading across his face, marvels at the skeleton's cunning, asking if it truly knows how to switch its weapon mid-fight. But with lightning-fast reflexes, Keatle quickly grabs the skeleton's sword-holding hand again, stopping its renewed attack dead in its tracks. And with a powerful, swift kick, Keatle sends the skeleton flying backward, proving his dominance in this strange, undead dance. The skeleton, now reduced to a torso and head, still relentlessly attempts to attack, dragging itself forward, showcasing its terrifying persistence even in defeat. Keatle, impressed by the monster's adaptability, lets out a delighted laugh, marveling at its high intelligence and ability to substitute its body parts. Hayes, however, is absolutely horrified and sickened by the grotesque sight of the reanimating skeleton, clutching her mouth in pure disgust. Kazan and the warrior are equally speechless, their faces a mask of pure terror and disbelief as they struggle to process the truly monstrous power and adaptability of this undead creature. Asen, still completely awestruck, can only stare as Ketil effortlessly holds the skeleton he just dismembered, recognizing the overwhelming power radiating from our boy, thinking, a true barbarian. Ketil, completely unfazed, drops the skeleton's skull and coolly notes that it can still move with just its head, finding the creature's persistence amusing, showcasing his unique perspective on monsters. After presumably clearing the first floor, Ashen emerges, smiling apologetically for the delay, but Kazan, completely terrified by his power, frantically tells him to take all the time he needs, muttering a nervous "my thanks." Ketil, still with that confident, almost innocent smile, then declares it's time to depart once more, and his terrified party members, now completely subservient, nervously stutter, "Why yes sir." As the party continues deeper into the dungeon, Ketil observes their surroundings, noting that this place holds a different, darker aura than the previous floor. They descend a grand staircase, entering what Ketil declares to be the second floor of the dungeon, the oppressive darkness hinting at even greater dangers. Kazan, visibly worn out from the relentless pace, wipes his brow and timidly suggests to Ketil that perhaps a brief rest would be best, clearly struggling to keep up. Ketil, looking thoughtful for a moment, agrees to the rest, stating it would indeed be for the best, a decision that sends Kazan into an explosion of pure, unadulterated relief and gratitude. As the party sits, utterly exhausted, Ketil, composed and observant, looks at them and states he has something he wants to ask regarding this dungeon, his curious gaze hinting at deeper insights. Hazen the warrior, startled by Ketil's sudden question, look at him with wide, curious eyes, Haze nervously asking, "Yes?" Ketil, with a confident smile, acknowledges his limited knowledge on the matter, humbly admitting that his understanding of this new world is still insufficient. Haze, in her chibi form, charmingly praises his desire to learn, then in her normal form, asks what he is curious about, encouraging his quest for knowledge. Ketil, looking thoughtful, then points out that this dungeon is located quite close to the territory and asks if there are any issues with the dungeon and the monsters within it. Haze explains that generally, monsters from a dungeon do not venture outside, though there are exceptions that are always identified and dealt with beforehand, trying to reassure him. Kazan then steps in, explaining that dungeons are a natural phenomenon, sometimes appearing as caves, other times as towering structures, but the majority of them manifest near densely populated areas. Ketil, connecting the dots with a subtle hum, realizes with newfound understanding why this dungeon appeared in this specific location. Haze continues, detailing that when a dungeon manifests, the local lord assesses the danger level, and then outsiders like themselves, mercenaries, or guards are dispatched to clear it. Ketil clarifies, asking if dungeons never manifest inside the territory, to which Haze confirms they always appear at a certain distance. Ketil then simply replies, "I see." With a sparkling, excited expression, Ketil leans forward, asking if there's a reward for a successful conquest of these dungeons, his true mercenary motivation shining through. Haze confirms that there is usually a boss on the final floor and that they receive various rewards for defeating it, and for a dungeon of this size, the rewards should be quite substantial, leaving Ketil with a pleased smirk, knowing this is just like the games he used to play. Ketil, with a confident, almost childlike glee, exclaims to himself that this really is just like the games, completely immersed in the fantasy, as a bewildered Haze questions what game he's even talking about, prompting Ketil to sheepishly admit he was just talking to himself. Still full of questions about this new world, Ketil then tells Haze he has one more thing he's curious about, and Haze, ever so polite, timidly encourages him to ask. With a serious expression, Ketil asks the crucial question, who is it that actually makes these dungeons, completely baffling Haze, who stares at him with wide, confused eyes. A bewildered Haze, her expression a mix of shock and confusion, explains to Ketil that dungeons simply occur naturally, and no one actually creates them, challenging his underlying assumption. But Ketil, ever the astute observer, sees through the simple explanation, pointing out several oddities that make these dungeons feel far too deliberate, like how they always manifest near populated areas, almost as if demanding to be explored, luring people with the promise of treasure. With a thoughtful, almost critical expression, Ketil concludes that for a supposedly natural phenomenon, the appearance and characteristics of these dungeons feel far too deliberate and purposeful. Haze, her face etched with a dawning, shocked realization, stammers, "Why you're right, aren't you?" as Ketil's insights completely unravel her long-held beliefs. With a pensive expression, Hayes admits to herself that this was such a given, a fundamental truth of their world, that she never even thought to question it, highlighting the profound impact of Keitel's simple question. The thief, Kazan, also reels from Keitel's revelation, internally admitting it's true, he'd never even considered it, never doubted it was just the natural order, now questioning if this barbarian, of all people, is challenging the very truth of their world. Kazan's internal struggle deepens as he recalls the common belief that barbarians are ignorant, savage, and cruel, devoid of reason or fear, and though he admits that much is true about the barbarians he knew, he's forced to confront the unsettling question: if everything they believe is correct, then is this man, Keitel, truly a typical barbarian? Kazan, still reeling from Keitel's unsettling intelligence, can only watch with wide, shocked eyes as the barbarian continues to shatter his preconceived notions, thinking, how interesting, as Keitel's every word challenges what he thought he knew. Keitel, completely oblivious to Kazan's internal turmoil, flashes a bright, friendly smile, and with a casual tone, asks everyone if they've rested enough, ready to continue their dungeon delve. The exhausted Hayes and the warrior are startled, quickly scrambling to get up from their rest, while Kazan, still in disbelief from Keitel's insights, meekly stammers out a nervous yes, his usual bravado completely gone. With a confident, cheerful grin, Keitel declares it's time to depart once more, and Hayes, in her adorable chibi form, reacts with a surprised but resigned yes, clearly ready to follow, no matter how intimidating he is. The party continues deeper into the dungeon, Keitel leading with a determined gaze, while Kazan, Hayes, and the warrior follow, their expressions a mix of apprehension and resignation, fully aware of the overwhelming power of their barbarian leader. Suddenly, Keitel stops, his eyes wide with surprise as he spots a glowing treasure chest in the middle of the dungeon, and with genuine curiosity, he asks, "What is that?" Kazan, stepping up, explains that it's a treasure chest, one of the rewards of this maze, and Keitel can have it, provided he can unlock it, setting up a new challenge for our boy. Kazan mentally laments that unlocking such a high-quality chest requires a master rogue, someone of immense skill, which he clearly is not. He then sadly concludes it's a shame, and they'll have to abandon it, only for Keitel to abruptly cut him off, stating, "Kazan, I'll ask you to unlock it." Kazan's face goes completely blank, his eyes wide and unblinking, as he lets out a stunned, then mutters, "The hell," completely dumbfounded by Keitel's unexpected demand. Kazan looks at the treasure chest, then at Keitel, as our boy confidently states, "That is a treasure chest. And you are a rogue." Kazan, flustered and with a forced chuckle, replies, well, yes, I suppose that's true, but..." Keitel, completely unfazed by Kazan's hesitation, flashes a brilliant smile, confidently reminding the thief, "Is it not the role of the rogue to handle treasure chests? Therefore, I am asking," as he eagerly anticipates seeing a rogue's skills up close. Kazan, however, is in a complete panic, admitting internally he's not wrong, but lamenting that there's one massive problem with Keitel's logical request. His internal chibi self screams in agony, "If I could actually do that, I wouldn't be in this situation," realizing he's completely trapped in this impossible scenario. Kazan's internal meltdown continues, admitting he's a mere bottom feeder who isn't even acknowledged by the guild, and therefore, he has absolutely no business knowing how to pick locks, making Keitel's demand truly terrifying. He's sweating bullets, screaming internally that he simply can't just tell him the truth, knowing his pride, and maybe his life, is on the line with this barbarian. Kazan observes Keitel's beaming, expectant face, internally acknowledging that if he were honest, that pure expectation would instantly turn to crushing disappointment, a fate he desperately wants to avoid. His deepest fear manifests, Keitel, with glowing purple eyes and an ominous aura, scornfully asking, "You call yourself a rogue, yet you can't even do that," followed by a chilling, "You're useless." With a forced, tearful chuckle, Kazan finally gives in, saying, "Ha ha. Well then, I'll give it a shot," desperately trying to put on a brave face while his inner self is screaming in pure agony. As Kazan awkwardly fumbles with the lockpicking tools, Keitel observes with genuine curiosity, thinking, "Oh? So that is the equipment used for lockpicking. How curious." Meanwhile, Kazan, sweating bullets, thinks, "He's staring right through me from behind. If I fail this, I'm not getting out of here alive." Kazan desperately racks his brain, pleading with himself to remember, as he tries to recall the lockpicking skills he'd only ever observed while working as a humble porter for other, more capable rogues, knowing his very life depends on it. Kazan desperately racks his brain, pleading with himself to remember, as he tries to recall the lockpicking skills he'd only ever observed while working as a humble porter for other, more capable rogues, knowing his very life depends on it. He simply has to risk his life for this moment. And then, in a moment of pure triumph, he does it. Kazan, tears streaming down his face, announces that the chest is open, completely overwhelmed by his own unexpected success. Hayes is absolutely amazed, gushing that only skilled thieves can open such chests and praising Kazan's incredible talent. Keatle, beaming with a genuine smile, also expresses his admiration, saying, "Oh. Is that so? Impressive. Kazan." Kazan, however, is completely introspective, questioning if he was truly living his best life in the past, admitting it definitely seemed impossible and wondering how he could have succeeded by mere estimation, realizing he might have underestimated his own potential. Keatle then, ever the pragmatist, asks about the treasure's value. Kazan explains that a regular family could live comfortably for about a month with this much, even luxuriously, making the reward quite substantial. Keatle, with a confident smirk, simply replies, "Is that so?" Understood, his mind already processing the economic implications of such a bounty. Then, Keatle turns to Kazan and, with a casual tone, instructs him to take care of the rewards. Kazan, still reeling from the successful lockpick, nervously salutes, stuttering, "Yes, sir." Kazan is completely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of loot, visibly struggling to carry it all, which prompts Keatle and Hayes to ask if he needs help or if something hurts. Kazan, flustered, emphatically denies doing anything, his face a mix of embarrassment and exhaustion. As they move deeper into the dungeon, Keatle, ever vigilant, stops the group and calmly announces, "Wait. Please stop. It's skeletons," sensing the danger before anyone else. He observes the scattered bones, noting that there are 4 skeletons from the looks of it, and, with his usual confidence, declares, "I'll handle 3 of them, leaving 1 for the rest of the party." Keatle, with a confident smirk and glowing purple eyes, declares that the last remaining skeleton is all his to handle, setting the stage for his next display of power. Kazan, visibly intimidated, whispers to someone unseen that this is truly a battle, confirming his apprehension about the impending fight in Keatle's overwhelming presence. Hayes, the cleric, and the warrior, Alessandro, also look nervous but bravely nod in agreement, confirming they understand their roles and are ready to face the undead. Kazan, looking grim, admits internally that the sight of bones assembling always gives him a chilling sensation, highlighting his discomfort with the undead enemies. Suddenly, a group of skeletons, glowing with an ominous blue energy, begin to assemble from the scattered bones on the dungeon floor, rising to confront the party. With a burst of golden aura, Alessandro, Hayes, and Kazan brace themselves, ready for the confrontation, as the call to battle echoes through the dungeon. A horde of glowing skeletons charges forward, their bony limbs rattling, as they relentlessly advance towards the party, ready to strike. Kazan, moving with agile speed, unleashes a powerful, glowing strike with his weapon, parrying a skeleton's attack with precision and skill. Meanwhile, Keatle, completely unfazed, is effortlessly holding 3 skeletons at once, a powerful purple aura radiating from him, as he proudly declares this a rare spectacle and tells the others not to interrupt, asserting he'll handle all of them himself. The warrior, Alessandro, bravely raises his shield, blocking a skeleton's glowing sword with a resounding clang, sparks flying from the impact as he holds the line. Alessandro, the warrior, bravely holds his ground, his shield glowing as he deflects the skeleton's relentless glowing sword, sparks flying from the intense impact. Meanwhile, Kazan, the agile thief, leaps into action, a blur of motion with his knife drawn, aiming a swift strike at another skeleton, determined to contribute to the chaotic fight. He lands a powerful blow, his knife slicing through the air as the skeleton recoils, proving Kazan's agility and precision are just what this party needs. Hayes, the cleric, focuses intently, a golden glow emanating from her hand as she casts a spell, while Alessandro, still holding the line, pushes back with all his might against the relentless undead onslaught. But even with their combined efforts, Alessandro is sent sprawling to the ground, knocked back by a powerful blow, as the skeleton from above prepares for another devastating attack. The battle rages, and with a sickening crack, one of the skeletons takes a heavy hit, its leg bone shattering, showcasing the fierce struggle the party is enduring. Another skeleton suffers a brutal blow, its neck and head severely damaged, blue energy flickering around it as it struggles to maintain its form. With a guttural, desperate scream, a skeleton thrashes, its entire body glowing ominously, clearly in immense pain and on the verge of collapsing. Ketil, watching the entire spectacle with a confident laugh, claps his hands together, praising his new party members, saying it's truly impressive to see their core skills in action firsthand. With a charming smile and a casual flick of his hand, causing shimmering light to dance in the air, Ketil declares that their efforts were quite rare, then confidently states that with the obstacles now cleared, it's time for him to enjoy the show. As Ketil declares it's time to enjoy the show, he suddenly becomes a blur of motion, effortlessly striking a skeleton with a powerful kick, sending it flying across the dungeon floor. The entire party, from Kazan to Hayes to Alessandro, watches Ketil with a dawning, terrifying realization: this barbarian is somehow testing them, pushing them to their limits. Hayes, battling fierce skeletons with her golden aura, internally acknowledges that in this brutal dungeon, showing even a hint of weakness means certain death, reinforcing the high stakes of Ketil's test. Completely exhausted, the trio slumps to the ground, panting heavily, clear evidence of the relentless battles they've endured through Ketil's intense training. A flashback shows a younger Ashen in the snowy wasteland, thinking about how those who survived the unforgiving snowfield must be incredibly strong, echoing his current party's struggle and his own past resilience. Thanks to Ketil's overwhelming power, the party easily proceeds through the dungeon, effortlessly dispatching numerous skeletons from the third floor, culminating in Ketil unleashing a massive purple aura that obliterates them all. And finally, they reach the deepest, most ominous part of the dungeon, where a heavily armored skeleton, clutching a sword, stands guard, its presence radiating immense power. As the party approaches, the true boss is revealed, a formidable skeleton knight, seated on a throne, its presence causing a collective gasp of pure dread from the group. Hayes is absolutely petrified, her face a mask of pure horror as she stammers, "No way. Why is something like that here?" clearly recognizing the overwhelming danger the skeleton knight poses. Ketil, ever calm, turns to his terrified companions and asks if this skeleton knight is different from the others, to which they confirm that it is indeed strong, quite strong, emphasizing its immense power. Hayes is absolutely petrified, screaming that the skeleton knight is a monster they simply cannot handle and that unless it's a knight-level fighter, they have no chance of winning. Then she panics about what happens if they decide to retreat. Ketil, completely unfazed, is calmly told by Kazan that if they retreat, the territory will confirm if it was a reasonable decision and, if so, it will likely be processed without issue. Ketil, with a confident, almost dismissive smirk, simply replies, "That's reasonable," completely unbothered by the threat of retreat or the formidable skeleton knight. With a resolute step, Ketil moves forward, his heavy bootfalls echoing on the dungeon stairs as he confidently approaches the skeleton knight, ready for confrontation. Ketil observes the formidable skeleton knight, noting with interest that it somehow maintains its own form, his purple eyes gleaming with genuine curiosity, finding the creature interesting. Suddenly, the skeleton knight raises its massive, glowing sword, unleashing a powerful pink attack, prompting a desperate watch out from the party as the attack crashes towards them. Hayes is violently thrown back by the skeleton knight's brutal attack, screaming in pain as the dungeon floor shatters and explodes around her from the immense impact. Alessandro, the warrior, struggles immensely to block the skeleton knight's glowing sword with his shield, yelling in agony as Kazan ducks for cover, both overwhelmed by the sheer force of the blow. Ketil looks genuinely surprised, exclaiming "OH," as Alessandro, panting heavily, admits with disbelief that a single blow from this skeleton knight possesses such incredible power, completely shattering his expectations. The imposing skeleton knight stands tall amidst the chaos, its back to us, while the battered and terrified party members behind it, utterly defeated, realize with dread that he's just too strong. The formidable skeleton knight, now fully enveloped in a menacing purple aura, lunges forward with incredible speed, unleashing its true power as it closes in on the battered party. But before the knight can land another blow, Ketil's eyes glow with fierce determination, and he unleashes a devastating punch, sending the mighty skeleton knight flying back in a massive explosion of raw power. Kazan, Hayes, and Alessandro are absolutely dumbfounded, their faces a mask of pure terror and disbelief as they scream in unison, utterly shell-shocked by Ketil's overwhelming display of strength. Ketil, completely unfazed by the chaos he just caused, calmly claps his hands, a confident smirk playing on his lips, and asks with a hint of amusement, "Is that all the skeleton knight has?" Kazan, still reeling from the shock, hears Ketil call his name and nervously stammers out a "Why yes," his usual bravado completely shattered by the barbarian's incredible power. Ketil then points to a shining treasure chest and casually asks Kazan if he can unlock it, but the thief is in a full-blown panic, screaming that it's impossible because the chest has a high-level lock that he simply doesn't have the skill to open. Kazan, defeated, laments that it's a shame, and they'll have to leave the chest, but Ketil, radiating a powerful purple aura, simply smashes his fist into the ground, completely ignoring the thief's words. In a stunning display of brute force, Ketil effortlessly smashes the treasure chest open, sending its glittering contents and a burst of white light exploding outwards, leaving Kazan, Hayes, and Alessandro screaming in utter disbelief. Ketil, a satisfied grin on his face, remarks that the rewards are certainly better this way, then calmly instructs Kazan to take care of the rest, and the terrified thief, completely overwhelmed, nervously stutters, "Why yes." As Ketil takes another casual step, the party silently grapples with the unbelievable reality that he just smashed a treasure chest open with his bare hands, a feat utterly unheard of in their world. Kazan, completely flustered, stares at the ruined chest, wondering why Ketil even bothered asking him to unlock it if he could just smash it open with his bare hands, the barbarian's logic utterly baffling him. Suddenly, Ketil's expression shifts to surprise, his eyes wide as he looks at something unseen and asks, "What is it?" his curiosity piqued by a new sight. The party emerges from the dungeon, bathed in sunlight, their faces a mix of awe and exhaustion as Ketil leads them out, having effortlessly conquered the perilous depths. Kazan explains that a dungeon completely vanishes once it's cleared, then remarks that it seems there wasn't a hidden secret room after all, a detail Ketil is now curious about. Ketil, completely intrigued, asks if these secret rooms actually exist, and Kazan confirms they do, though they are incredibly rare, adding another layer of mystery to the dungeon world. Ketil flashes a confident, almost mischievous grin, declaring that finding secret rooms sounds like fun, too, completely baffling Kazan, who clearly fears the barbarian's idea of enjoyment. Back at the entrance, a guard is absolutely flabbergasted, screaming in disbelief, "What?" This fast, utterly shocked by how quickly Ketil's party returned from the dungeon. The head guard, looking somewhat stern but also intrigued, then asks the party how their dungeon delve went, ready for their report. Ketil, beaming with a triumphant smile and a hearty thumbs up, declares that the dungeon was very satisfying, completely shocking the head guard and his own party members with his enthusiastic assessment. The head guard, still reeling from Ketil's assessment, regains his composure and announces that he will now proceed with their entry procedure, instructing them to follow him one by one, finally granting them access to the kingdom. After Ketil's party follows the head guard for their entry procedure, Hayes, the cleric, looks hesitant as she reports that there didn't seem to be any major issues with their dungeon run. Alessandro, the paladin, then looks at the head guard and asks a crucial question: given their report, do they now think it's acceptable for the barbarian to stay in the domain? Hayes looks thoughtful, while Alessandro, speaking from behind, trails off vaguely whenever Ketil is the subject, showing his apprehension and difficulty in discussing the barbarian. Alessandro's inner monologue reveals the true purpose of the entry procedure. It's not just about clearing a dungeon, but about weeding out any subversive elements, hinting at the head guard's deeper motivations. Meanwhile, Kazan, the thief, with a subtle smirk, internally muses that Ketil doesn't seem like the type to cause any real trouble, a surprising assessment from the usually cautious rogue. Alessandro reflects that while Ketil clearly possesses monstrous strength, he didn't bring any harm to his party, leading the paladin to conclude that he's very different from a typical barbarian. Ketil, in his chibi form, smiles proudly as he gives a glowing report, stating that Kazan was excellent at disarming traps and opening the treasure chest, Alessandro was a reliable warrior, and Hayes's many prayers were a great aid in battle, painting a picture of a surprisingly harmonious team. The head guard, hearing Ketil's overwhelmingly positive report, finds it highly unusual. He notes that typically, when strangers are forced into a party to clear a dungeon, they rarely have good things to say about one another, confirming the barbarian's unique leadership. After a moment of contemplation, the head guard makes his decision, stating with finality, "Very well. I will grant you entry." The head guard then gives Ketil and his party a stern warning: permission to enter is granted, but if they cause any trouble, they will be exiled, urging them to be careful, and the party, with Ketil in front, collectively acknowledges with a firm yes. With the entry procedures complete, the head guard presents Ketil and his party with a bag of rewards, instructing them to divide it amongst themselves, noting that while rewards are often confiscated, this time it's different. Ketil accepts the bag with a joyful, confident smile, expressing his gratitude, but internally, the head guard admits that after witnessing Ketel's overwhelming power, he simply doesn't feel like confiscating the dungeon's treasure this time. Ketel, beaming with excitement and generosity, declares that they will now divide the dungeon's rewards fairly amongst all party members, completely shocking his companions, who are clearly not used to such a benevolent leader. Kazan and Hayes, utterly flustered and tearful, nervously try to decline their share, stammering that it's. But Ketel, looking firm and fair, reminds them that they all work together as a team, asserting that the reward must be shared, and his still stunned party members sheepishly agree to his unwavering generosity. Then, with an even bigger, more joyful smile, Ketel excitedly suggests they go for a drink to celebrate their success, asking if they should find a pub nearby, completely baffling his exhausted party members with his boundless energy. Ketel's party members, now completely overwhelmed and on the verge of tears, try to force a celebratory laugh, stammering that it's. As Ketel, still radiating a celebratory aura, confidently walks through the domain, a nearby guard acknowledges his monstrous strength, recognizing him as a barbarian capable of felling a skeleton knight in a single, devastating blow. The guard's internal monologue continues, realizing Ketel possesses at least knight-level power, but more profoundly, he's not just a powerful barbarian, he's the barbarian of legend, an alien, unique existence in their world. The head guard, now gravely aware of the barbarian's true nature, instructs one of his men to stay on watch while he goes to report the unprecedented arrival directly to the Lord, his face etched with the gravity of the situation. The head guard, following his mission to report Ashen's arrival, enters a lavish hall and respectfully announces his presence to the Lord, his footsteps echoing softly. Lord Luke Barkin, head of the Barkin domain in the Gehend Kingdom, looks up from his desk, a stern expression on his face, and asks the guard what he needs. The first captain, his face serious, reports the shocking news directly to Lord Barkin: a barbarian has inexplicably appeared within their domain. The opulent castle interior, adorned with rich tapestries and golden accents, frames Lord Barkin's sharp question as he demands to know if the captain actually granted entry to such a dangerous individual. The captain, looking visibly uneasy, tries to justify his decision, stammering that he judged that it wouldn't be a major issue, clearly downplaying the barbarian's potential threat. Lord Barkin, composed but with a hint of skepticism in his eyes, calmly leans back in his opulent chair and questions the captain, asking what the actual problem is if the barbarian's presence wasn't a major issue. The captain, a bead of sweat forming on his brow, finally confesses his true concern: the barbarian is incredibly strong enough to pose a significant problem for the domain. Lord Barkin's expression tightens with concern, his eyes fixed on the captain as he presses for more details, demanding to know precisely how strong this barbarian truly is. The captain delivers the shocking truth, revealing that he was told the barbarian, Ketel, took down a formidable skeleton knight in a single, devastating blow, a feat that visibly rattles Lord Barkin. Lord Barkin's eyes widen in absolute disbelief, his mind struggling to process the implications of the captain's report. As he utters the words "a skeleton knight," the gravity of the situation finally sinking in. Lord Barkin's mind races, grappling with the fact that a skeleton knight, a monster no one below a true knight should face, was utterly defeated, then completely reels at the captain's claim that this unknown barbarian took it down in a single strike. He reflects on barbarians, simple, ignorant beings who only understand the logic of brute strength, then asks, a tremor in his voice, if the captain is suggesting this individual is first-rate, a truly terrifying level of power. The captain, with a solemn expression, confirms there's a high probability of him being first-rate, which prompts Lord Barkin to ask, his voice barely a whisper, about the possibility of him being even stronger. With a visible bead of sweat, the captain admits he cannot deny the possibility, confirming Lord Barkin's gravest fears about this barbarian's true strength. Lord Barkin, pondering the headache of such a powerful barbarian, especially one they believe to be right, orders for him to be summoned now, catching the captain completely off guard, who cautiously asks if that's truly wise. Lord Barkin explains that the presence of such a powerful individual roaming their territory is a source of instability, stating it would put his mind at ease to see him with his own eyes, despite the potential danger. He then confidently reveals his ace in the hole, stating that he has his own powerful knight with him, a clear sign he's prepared for any confrontation with the barbarian. Lord Barkin, with a stern gaze, turns to his knight and asks for his thoughts on the situation, seeking his trusted warrior's counsel. The knight, radiating a powerful aura, dismisses the barbarian as a mere brute with no intelligence, proudly declaring that before his own swordsmanship, taught directly by the greatsword master, this barbarian is absolutely nothing. With a resolute expression, Lord Barkin finally makes his decision, ordering the captain to summon the barbarian, stating he will speak with him himself, a direct confrontation now inevitable. After their intense dungeon run, Ketil and his party are finally at the pub, feasting on a spread of delicious food and drinks, with Ketil enthusiastically devouring his meal, while his overwhelmed party members watch, still reeling from his overwhelming presence. Ketil, with a pleased smile, declares the food and atmosphere delicious, enjoying the quiet ambience, and generously offers to treat everyone to as much as they like. Hayes lets out a nervous, forced laugh, clearly uncomfortable with Ketil's overwhelming presence, while Kazan hides his face, completely overwhelmed by the situation. Ketil turns to Alessandro, reminding him he said he was a holy knight, prompting the paladin to nervously stammer out a confirmation, clearly intimidated. Ketil, curious, asks Alessandro what kind of divine power he uses, pointing out he didn't see him use any in the dungeon. Alessandro, looking sheepish, admits his divine power hasn't awakened yet, as he's still in training. Ketil, in a chibi panel, expresses his disappointment, saying what a shame, while Kazan, in his own chibi form, awkwardly clears his throat, the cozy pub setting contrasting with their internal discomfort. Ketil then turns his attention to Hayes, asking about her god, Kaloja, and if there's a temple nearby, catching the cleric completely off guard. Hayes, looking downcast, explains there probably isn't a temple nearby, as Kaloja, the god of lies and deceit, is a shunned deity, cast out by the masses, as a beautiful and imposing image of the serpentine goddess is revealed. Kazan, his hands nervously clutching his thighs, timidly addresses Ketil, asking, with a mix of fear and curiosity, just how strong he truly is. Kazan and Alessandro are utterly speechless, their faces a mask of pure shock, as a chibi Ketil, oblivious to their awe, happily munches on food, confirming he's still a bottomless pit. Ketil, still at the pub, turns to his party, acknowledging his lack of knowledge about this world's ranking system, then asks how strong a skeleton knight truly is, curious about his own power level in this new realm. Hayes explains that a first-rate warrior, like Ketil, could defeat a skeleton knight, while one needs to be at least second-rate just to face one, highlighting the immense power Ketil casually wields. Ketil processes this, repeating that his strength is considered. The tiny pub owner, trembling with fear, approaches Ketil and timidly stammers that it's time for his shop to close, clearly eager for the intimidating barbarian to leave. Ketil, realizing his oversight, gives a warm smile and apologizes, saying they should get going, finally acknowledging the pub owner's obvious discomfort. Outside the pub, Ketil asks his party if they have any plans or a schedule, to which Kazan and Hayes frantically reply they are. With a confident, knowing smile, Ketil says. Ketil's party, now in chibi form, waves goodbye with forced smiles, internally screaming. Ashen, now alone in a comfortable bed, stretches luxuriously, sighing in contentment and realizing this is the first time he's laid in a bed since waking up in this world, a true comfort after the snowy wasteland. Ashen, completely at ease, pays for his room, internally expressing his relief that he can afford lodging without issue thanks to the dungeon reward, highlighting the immediate benefits of his new life. Ashen relaxes in his comfortable bed, stretching languidly, and thinks to himself that compared to the brutal snowfields he escaped, this new world is truly a paradise. He muses on how long it took him to finally set foot in civilized lands since waking up as a barbarian in the snowfields, then wonders what his next move should be, eager to experience and feel more things. Ashen extends his hand, emphasizing his deep desire for a true adventure, with his thoughts drifting to the sacred grounds of the elves, a place of magic and wonder. His mind races with possibilities, envisioning grand destinations like the Magic Tower and the Royal Capital, his eyes reflecting his yearning for all the fantastical experiences this new world has to offer. Suddenly, Ashen awakens with a jolt from a deep sleep, his chibi form drooling, as he groggily questions what just disturbed his peaceful rest. He sits up in bed, wiping away the last traces of drool, fully awakening from his slumber as he processes his surroundings. A guard timidly opens his door, startling Ashen, who quickly apologizes, thinking he must have woken the guard rather than the other way around, showcasing his accidental intimidating presence. The guard, looking visibly nervous, addresses Ashen, asking what he needs, clearly intimidated by the hulking barbarian's shirtless form. With a serious expression, the guard informs Ashen that the Lord of the Domain wishes to see him in person, a summons that suggests an important meeting. Ashen reflects on the summons, pondering the gravity of a lord, the master of the land, wanting to meet him personally, his interest piqued by this unexpected invitation. Accepting this summons with a confident smile, Ashen, ever respectful, replies, "Very well, ready to meet the lord of the domain." Ashen, preparing to meet the lord, calmly states he'll grab his clothes and depart, but the guard, completely bewildered by his easygoing nature, nervously wonders if they actually found the right person, given his casual demeanor. Walking through the vibrant market square, Ashen recalls his first entry into the territory was at night, preventing him from getting a good look at the bustling town. But now, in the glorious daylight, with the market in full swing, Ashen finds the domain surprisingly interesting, his eyes taking in all the new sights. Ashen, absolutely beaming, gives a delighted thumbs up, proclaiming that if this is what they call a lucky fantasy, he'll gladly take it any time, while the bewildered guard wonders what on earth he's doing. The guard, increasingly stressed, realizes they don't have much time and decides he needs to block Ashen's line of sight as much as possible, hinting at something they want to hide from the barbarian. Back in the lavish hall, the captain formally announces Ashen's arrival to Lord Barkin, stating, "I've brought the barbarian, my lord," and the lord, with a composed demeanor, grants permission to come in, ready for the meeting. Lord Barkin extends his hand in greeting, introducing himself as Luke Barkin, the lord of the territory, stating he's pleased to meet you, barbarian, a formal yet probing welcome. Ashen, returning the polite gesture, extends his hand for a firm handshake and respectfully replies, "Pleased to meet you, lawful lord of Barkin territory," showcasing his unexpected manners. With a slight bow of his head, Ashen formally introduces himself as the barbarian, Keetle, completely shocking Lord Barkin, whose eyes widen in disbelief at the barbarian's unexpected display of manners and self-introduction. Lord Barkin is absolutely stunned, his mind screaming in disbelief as he watches a barbarian, Keetle, actually bow his head, a gesture completely unheard of from such a savage race. He reflects that barbarians believe strength is everything, never bowing their heads, and yet, here Keetle stands, polite and composed, leaving Lord Barkin utterly bewildered, thinking that living long enough truly shows you everything. Regaining his composure, Lord Barkin acknowledges Keetle's unexpected manners and, with a slight cough, politely invites him to take a seat, ready to begin their conversation. Keetle is now seated across from Lord Barkin in the opulent hall, with the silent, armored knight standing guard behind the lord, creating a tense, formal atmosphere. Ashen takes in the grand surroundings, admiring the medieval castle, but then, his sharp senses pick up on something that causes him to pause, his eyes widening slightly with a hint of confusion. He spots the heavily armored figure, the knight, standing guard behind the lord, and recognizes him instantly, realizing he's finally seeing a real-life knight, just like in his games. Keetle is absolutely beaming, his eyes sparkling with delight as he marvels at the knight, thinking how cool he looks, just like he imagined from all the knight games he played as a kid. But then, a chilling sensation cuts through his excitement. The knight, misinterpreting Keetle's enthusiastic gaze, glares back with an intense, undisguised killing intent, his eyes burning with fury and a dark, sinister aura radiating around him. The knight's killing intent is unmistakable, a palpable, malicious presence. He scoffs internally at revealing such bloodlust in the lord's presence, but his focus remains locked on Keetle, viewing him as a direct threat. Clenching his gauntlet fist, the knight silently vows that Keetle, the foolish wretch, will not leave this place alive, while Lord Barkin, completely oblivious to his knight's murderous thoughts, calmly states that the reason he called Keetle is simple, setting the stage for a tense, unexpected negotiation. Lord Barkin, unwavering in his calm demeanor despite his knight's murderous intent, begins the conversation, stating directly to Keetle that there are a few things he wants to verify. Keetle, completely relaxed and composed, takes a sip from his tea, then casually tells Lord Barkin to ask away, ready to answer whatever questions the lord might have. Lord Barkin's first question cuts straight to the chase: "Where did you come from?" Keetle, with a knowing smile, responds that he hails from the coldest place in this entire world, from a desolate land completely covered in white, flashing back to his brutal origins. Both Lord Barkin and his knight react with immediate shock and alarm, their eyes wide with disbelief as the lord, his voice barely a whisper, identifies the legendary place, the White Snowfield. Lord Barkin is completely shaken, his mind racing as he processes that the barbarian of legend is standing right before him, a terrifying myth now a flesh-and-blood reality, and he outwardly expresses his disbelief, admitting Keetle speaks things hard to believe. Keetle, completely unfazed by the lord's disbelief, calmly states that the White Snowfield was indeed a miserable place, and whether the lord chooses to believe him or not is entirely his choice, a subtle challenge to Barkin's authority. Lord Barkin, changing tactics, decides to rephrase his question, his gaze hardening as he directly asks Ketil the crucial question: how strong are you? The true concern in Lord Barkin's mind isn't just Ketil's strength, but how incredibly dangerous his power is, especially considering his emergence from the fabled, deadly white snowfield. Ketil dismisses the question as the wrong question, explaining he has no idea how power levels are measured in this new land. Lord Barkin, looking thoughtful, simply replies, "I see." With a sly smile, Lord Barkin proposes a solution: how about a spar with my knight? He then promises Ketil will be rewarded well for it, setting the stage for an epic confrontation. Ketil, in his adorable chibi form, blinks in surprise, repeating Lord Barkin's proposal: a spar, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Lord Barkin, with a subtle smirk, clarifies that it's not a fight to the death and trusts Ketil to keep it within reason, setting the boundaries for their unique challenge. Ketil, back to his imposing self, flashes a confident smile, acknowledging the terms and musing, a spar with a knight, sounds good to me, completely accepting the challenge. His excitement is palpable as he envisions sparring with a real fantasy world knight, one who wields mystical power and aura, seeing it as a thrilling chance to witness a strong being's technique up close, concluding that this is going to be exciting. Meanwhile, the knight, observing Ketil's enthusiastic reaction, scoffs internally, thinking that a barbarian is still a barbarian, no matter how polite they act. They simply cannot hide their savage love of battle, a dark aura radiating around Ketil's image. The scene dramatically shifts to a grand outdoor arena, Lord Barkin now seated in a regal box above, as Ketil and the knight stand ready on the sandy ground, the anticipation for their spar electrifying the air. Lord Barkin, with a composed but firm tone, declares the spar can officially begin, expressing a hopeful wish that no blood is shed during the contest. The knight, swelling with arrogant pride, tells Ketil to consider it a profound honor to witness his superior swordsmanship, challenging the barbarian with a condescending gaze. Ketil, with a confident and subtly mischievous smile, replies that he too would prefer that outcome, referring to no blood being shed, his calm demeanor possibly masking deeper intentions. The knight's face twists in fury, his eyes narrowed and a vein bulging on his forehead, as he inwardly rages, how dare he, acting so relaxed. Completely offended by Ketil's unflappable composure. The enraged knight, simmering with barely contained fury, vows internally, "I'll show him." As a faint green aura begins to emanate from his hand, signaling his intent to unleash his full power. The knight explodes with a surge of green energy, his eyes glowing intensely, completely consumed by fury as he prepares to strike, convinced he's about to demonstrate an overwhelming difference in strength. As the knight fully charges his power, Ketil stands unfazed, his muscular frame poised, a calm expression on his face as if asking, "Now then, what will you do, barbarian?" anticipating the knight's next move with complete confidence. Suddenly, the knight unleashes a powerful green magical attack or illusion, causing a blinding flash and radiating energy that makes Ketil question if what he's seeing is even real, wondering, an illusion? Ketil, his eyes wide in realization, confirms that what he's seeing isn't an illusion as sharp green energy beams tear through the air right past him and the other men, making it clear the attack is very real and very close. The knight lunges forward in a blur, generating not one, but three distinct green energy swords, each one a real, tangible threat that streaks towards Ketil and the men, leaving them wondering if this is a display of true, overwhelming swordsmanship. Ketil's eyes pop wide in a hilarious double take, his chibi forms conveying utter astonishment at the knight's incredible, multi-sword attack, but a deeper thought reveals he knew the knight had this kind of power all along. The knight, still losing arrogance, smirks with a vein popping, trying to downplay Ketil's insane agility, scoffing that only dodging his masterful swordsmanship by a hair's breadth is all Ketil can manage, before grudgingly admitting that even that is, indeed, impressive. Ketil, deciding the show is over, declares that there's nothing left to watch. With lightning speed, he whips out a thin projectile and flicks his wrist, launching it with pinpoint accuracy, causing it to sharply embed itself right into the knight's armor with a resounding clang. Lord Barkin is absolutely speechless, staring in utter disbelief as he struggles to comprehend what just happened, muttering, what was that, in pure shock, while the knight lies completely defeated on the ground, Ketil standing triumphantly over him, with the knight's shattered sword pieces suspended in the air, a testament to Ketil's overwhelming power. The knight is sent flying through the air, his armor shattering into pieces, screaming in agony as he's brutally thrown across the arena. He crashes against the arena wall, leaving a massive crack in the ground from the sheer force of the impact, completely defeated and broken. The defeated knight, bleeding from his mouth, barely manages to whisper, "Just one strike." Lord Barkin, utterly horrified, can only think, what overwhelming power is this? Ketil stands tall amidst the settling dust, a confident smile on his face, casually asking, "Is it over?" Lord Barkin, visibly shaken and sweating, can only manage a hesitant yes, his previous confidence completely shattered by Ketil's display of power. Lord Barkin's mind reels, realizing a barbarian just defeated a first-class knight in one blow, a strength beyond imagination, at least Superman level, but even that feels inadequate, as the true depths of Ketil's power remain unknown, a force that could truly upset the balance of the world. With a grave expression, Lord Barkin decides it's time to inform Ketil about one of the few individuals in this world who bears the title of Swordmaster, wondering if Ketil will take an interest in such a powerful figure. Lord Barkin's eyes widen with a new realization, looking towards a sunlit window, as we see a figure, presumably the Swordmaster, waking up in a bright room, disturbed from his sleep. Lord Barkin, with a subtle look of judgment, internally comments on the Swordmaster's unchanging and rather questionable taste in hobbies, a subtle jab at his eccentricities. Lord Barkin, now sitting at his desk, watches as the Swordmaster walks away, remarking, "You need some entertainment in life, don't you?" as if the Swordmaster's journey is simply a peculiar pastime. The legendary Swordmaster Kane, a figure known for his discerning taste in entertainment, appears, now keen to hear about this intriguing new matter, likely the powerful barbarian, Ketil. Lord Barkin, showing immense reverence, bows deeply to the arriving Swordmaster Kane, humbly expressing his honor at the unannounced visit of such a legendary figure, confirming the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, the defeated knight groans in pain, still recovering from Ketil's single, devastating blow, clearly not having had an easy night after such a humiliating loss. Lord Barkin arrives to check on his injured knight, who lies in bed, asking if his body is feeling any better after the brutal spar, concerned for his subordinate. The knight, still clearly in pain and looking flustered, quickly sits up, reassuring Lord Barkin that he'll be fine in a few days, then apologizes profusely for his defeat. Swordmaster Kane, however, cuts in, his back to Lord Barkin, asserting that the knight's apology should actually be directed at him, clearly displeased by his disciple's loss. Swordmaster Kane sternly admonishes his disciple for losing to an unknown barbarian, making the knight flinch. What truly shocks the knight, however, is the chilling realization that Ketil left him utterly defeated without even a single scratch on himself. Swordmaster Kane, recounting the brutal defeat, recalls seeing the knight's armor completely decimated, a sight that should have meant death. Yet, Ketil emerged completely unharmed, save for a few torn clothes, leading the Swordmaster to the chilling conclusion: the barbarian deliberately held back, showing immense restraint. Swordmaster Kane, his expression grave, explains to his still reeling disciple that Ketil is no mere mindless brute, he possesses incredible control over his immense strength, wielding it with shocking precision, a revelation that leaves the knight stammering in disbelief. The Swordmaster concludes his assessment, stating that Ketil's display of such precise restraint means he far surpasses the level of even a first-class knight, estimating his power to be at a minimum, truly superhuman. Lord Barkin, acknowledging Swordmaster Kane's superior power, apologizes for his impudence, but questions how anyone could truly compare to the legendary Swordmaster. Swordmaster Kane, brimming with confidence, asserts that while Ketil may be strong, he is a Swordmaster, and even if Ketil can wield superhuman strength, he cannot reach his level. Lord Barkin acknowledges this, but then muses on Ketil's power, noting he didn't seem to use aura, yet still wielded immense strength, finding it perplexing. Lord Barkin reflects that such power, without ordinary methods, is impossible. He admits his initial disbelief about Ketil coming from the White Snowfield, but now sees it's true, grappling with the barbarian's unbelievable origin. Swordmaster Kane intently ponders. He questions if Ketil is merely a. Swordmaster Kane, still deep in thought, further questions if Ketil is a heteromorph, a different kind of being entirely, as images of the monstrous creatures from the White Wasteland flash through his mind. Lord Barkin, confused, asks. Swordmaster Kane dismisses his previous musings as a misjudgment, but then returns to the unsettling question. Swordmaster Kane calmly replies that it's a matter for later, then mentions that His Majesty the Emperor is well, hinting at a deeper, historical connection to Ketil's mysterious origins. The knight, looking out at a snowy mountain range, inwardly grumbles about the Emperor always asking for the strangest things. Swordmaster Kane dismisses Lord Barkin's concern, stating it's not something to worry about for now, and Lord Barkin, looking slightly flustered, acknowledges his understanding. Swordmaster Kane then asks if the powerful barbarian is still within their territory, and Lord Barkin, a bead of sweat on his brow, confirms that he said he would stay, so he believes he is. Swordmaster Kane, his expression grim, decides he should personally confirm the barbarian's presence and intentions, taking a resolute step forward. Back outside, in front of a grand, sun-drenched building, the head guard asks Keatle what his plans are now that he has successfully entered the domain. Keatle, pondering his next move, muses to himself about his current situation, as the head guard watches him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Lord Barkin offers Keatle a bag of gold coins as a reward for the duel, and more importantly, promises that from now on, he will not interfere with Keatle's activities within the territory. Keatle admits he hasn't decided on anything specific for his future, but expresses a desire for an officially recognized identity, as continually having to prove himself or deal with entry issues in new territories or dungeons would be a hassle. The head guard explains that if Keatle desires a recognized identity, he could find a high-status sponsor to vouch for him, or, as an alternative, he could become a mercenary. The head guard further explains that building achievements as a mercenary and gaining guild recognition could validate Keatle's identity, though he cautions that low-level mercenaries often become mere errand boys. He then muses that with Keatle's immense strength, finding a sponsor might be a more fitting path, leaving Keatle to ponder the meaning of mercenary. Keatle processes the head guard's suggestion, his eyes sparkling with renewed interest as he learns that a mercenary is someone who takes on requests and slays monsters, calling it the very essence of fantasy romance, a path he's now eager to explore. A confident smile spreads across Keatle's face as he asks the head guard where he needs to go to become a mercenary, completely catching the guard off guard, who nervously directs him to a guild hall. With a beaming smile and his powerful barbarian physique on full display, Keatle enthusiastically demands the head guard guide him to this guild hall, leaving the guard utterly bewildered and stammering a nervous reply. The true nature of mercenaries is revealed, drifters who take requests and embody romantic ideals to some, yet in reality, they are the lowest rung of society, without official status or recognition. This grim reality extends to mercenaries often dying in unexplored dungeons, becoming scapegoats for dirty work, illustrating why the bottom tier of mercenary society is generally crude, filthy, and chaotic. And just as advertised, the mercenary guild hall is a chaotic mess, with two burly men engaged in a brawl, one yelling. Their brawl escalates, one man screaming. Other mercenaries are completely unbothered, watching the fight and casually placing bets, one telling his chosen fighter. Meanwhile, at the reception desk, a woman named Rosa reviews some paperwork, a faint voice from off-panel asking her how the new recruits are faring today, setting a more mundane contrast to the chaos. Rosa, the mercenary guild receptionist, lets out a long sigh, looking utterly defeated, and simply states. Rosa continues her defeated assessment, lamenting that their new recruits include some nutjob claiming to be a holy knight, a thief, and a nun who, despite seeming okay, is untrusted due to her deity, highlighting the sheer chaos of the guild's new members. She sighs again, a blonde girl next to her timidly agreeing that it's truly a shame, emphasizing the ongoing struggles and general disappointment at the guild. Rosa's inner monologue of despair continues, wishing for a cool and kind prince on a white horse to appear and free her from the chaotic guild, where no decent people show up and dumb mercenaries are constantly picking fights. Just as Rosa despairs, our boy Keatle, radiating pure power, casually walks up to her desk, completely dominating the room with his presence, and calmly states, "So this is the guild hall," oblivious to the chaos in Rosa's shattered dreams. The ongoing brawl between two burly mercenaries is immediately interrupted as one of them stares in utter disbelief, realizing an actual barbarian has walked into their chaotic guild hall, while other mercenaries react with shock and a chibi Keatle blinks innocently. Keatle, with a confident smile and his arms crossed, simply announces to the stun room, "I'm here because I want to become a mercenary," leaving no doubt about his intentions. Rosa, completely panicking, screams in disbelief, papers flying everywhere, as she stutters, "You mean, a mercenary?" before nervously asking Keatle his purpose in becoming one. Keatle, seated across from her, explains he seeks official status, having heard it can be achieved through mercenary work. Rosa confirms this, but cautions that a considerable amount of achievements will be required, asking if that is okay with him. Keatle, completely unfazed, confidently agrees to the terms, placing 5 silver coins on the desk for his registration. Rosa, with a surprised expression, asks for his name and age, to which he replies, "I am Ketil, as for age, I'm not sure." Rosa, slightly exasperated but determined, types quickly on her old-fashioned typewriter, mumbling to herself, "I'll just enter something approximate," as she processes Ketil's unconventional registration. With the registration complete, Rosa, the guild receptionist, presents Ketil with a gleaming, golden mercenary badge, instructing him to never lose it, as it symbolizes his new status. Ketil accepts his new mercenary badge with a confident smile, looking at it with a pleased expression, and enthusiastically declares, "Enlist me, ready to take on his first quest." Beaming with excitement, Ketil asks Rosa what kind of requests are available, stating he'd like to start immediately, completely catching the receptionist off guard, who nervously stammers, "Our requests, right?" Rosa, now at a table with Ketil, places a clipboard before him, explaining that these are the only requests he can currently accept, given his status as a new mercenary. Ketil, clearly surprised by the limited options, leans forward, his eyes wide with a hint of bewilderment, and asks, "Wait, is this all there is?" The clipboard reveals a list of F-rank requests: herb gathering, basement cleaning, sewer cleanup, street cleaning, and night patrol, all mundane tasks for a powerful barbarian. Rosa, visibly nervous and sweating, explains that as an F-rank mercenary, these are the only available requests, secretly panicking about barbarian pride and fearing Ketil might suddenly lash out, wondering if she should call for help. She quickly adds that by completing simple tasks and building a record, he'll eventually be able to take on more difficult ones, but Ketil, unfazed, simply points to a request and declares, "I'll take this one." Rosa stares, wide-eyed and dumbfounded, clearly caught off guard by Ketil's quick and unexpected decision, still wary of his intimidating presence. Ketil's finger points directly to herb gathering on the F-rank request list, showing his immediate acceptance of the seemingly mundane task. Ketil, completely unfazed by the simplicity of the task, calmly asks the bewildered Rosa if gathering herbs isn't just something that needs to be done, assuring her there's no problem at all, leaving her speechless. Rosa manages a stunned, I see." And Ketil, with a confident smile, then asks for directions, eager to know where he can find these herbs. Rosa explains that he'll need to go outside the village and presents him with a picture, showing him exactly what the herbs look like. Ketil takes the herb picture with a confident smirk, telling Rosa he'll be back shortly, leaving her with a nervous, "Why yes." Rosa is completely dumbfounded, watching Ketil walk away with an utterly chill demeanor, wondering why he's so incredibly relaxed about a simple herb gathering task. Rosa and her blonde colleague stare wide-eyed in utter disbelief, mouths agape, completely baffled by Ketil's strange, almost carefree attitude towards his first mercenary mission. Now in a lush forest, Ketil studies the herb picture, noting that the plants are for treating wounds, and finds their appearance quite strange. With his new straw hat, Ketil confidently declares his. About an hour later, back at the Mercenary Guild Hall, a massive sack of herbs is unceremoniously dumped on the desk, startling Rosa, who lets out a shocked gasp as herbs spill everywhere. Ketil stands proudly beside the overflowing sack, casually asking Rosa if this much is enough, leaving her utterly bewildered and thinking he's some kind of mastermind trying to destroy the herb field. Rosa is completely bewildered by the sheer volume of herbs, stammering, "Wait? But?" Still processing how Ketil managed to gather so much. She then notices the incredible quality of the herbs, observing that they are all in great condition, which is unusual, as most mercenaries carelessly rip them up, breaking the stems. Ketil, with a confident and almost proud smirk, assures Rosa that despite his imposing appearance, he is quite confident in his delicate touch, leaving her with a nervous, "All right." Rosa thanks Ketil for his hard work and presents him with his reward, 1 silver coin, barely enough to buy the cheapest meal. Yet, Ketil smiles, deeply satisfied with the first money he's earned honestly through work in this new world. Ketil, beaming with pure satisfaction, enthusiastically asks if he can take another request right away, leaving Rosa and her colleague utterly baffled, wondering why he's so happy with such a meager reward. With an infectious grin, Ketil declares that since the sun is still high, he wants to work as much as he can, completely perplexing Rosa, who can only wonder why he looks so incredibly happy. Rosa, now in a chibi form, weeps internally, concluding that this new mercenary, Ketil, is just as weird as the rest of them. Back at the request board, Ketil, looking thoughtful, selects. Rosa, her chibi form sweating nervously, then timidly requests Ketil's help, asking him to take on this new cleaning task. Keatle, with a confident and cheerful smile, arrives at his next destination, proudly announcing, "I've come to clean the warehouse, ready for another day of mercenary work." Keatle, with his usual confident smile, approaches a woman, asking if she's the owner of the warehouse he's come to clean, completely startling her into nervously confirming and then recognizing him as a barbarian. Cleaning the warehouse was a breeze for Keatle, who effortlessly moved all the items inside. His next task was street sweeping, where he vigorously swept the ground, reflecting that it was tough to control his immense strength at first, but he managed without any major issues. From a distance, a bewildered man watches Keatle with binoculars, thinking about his superhuman strength, enough to conquer an entire kingdom, and how he'd be welcomed anywhere, questioning why such an incredibly powerful barbarian is meticulously doing trivial chores. Keatle is completely serious about his work, diligently sweeping the street with a cheerful smile, clearly enjoying the fulfilling feeling of a job well done, leaving no doubt about his commitment to even the simplest tasks. The baffled observer, still wondering why Keatle is doing such work, can only watch as Keatle, surrounded by blooming flowers, smiles contentedly, reflecting to himself that this simple, honest labor feels incredibly fulfilling. Back at the guild, Keatle's first day as a mercenary wraps up, and a bag of coins, his reward for completing all 15 requests, sits on a tray, a testament to his industriousness. The cheerful receptionist hands over the reward, a small bag of 15 silver coins, to Keatle, a meager sum for his superhuman efforts, but a honest earning nonetheless. Keatle beams with a radiant smile, accepting the coins and expressing his thanks, then enthusiastically declares he'll be back again tomorrow, his boundless energy and eagerness for work truly infectious, even for the guild staff. With a confident and determined smile, Keatle looks towards the rising sun, ready to embrace his second day in civilization, eager for whatever new experiences and tasks await him. As Keatle confidently strides through the bustling streets, radiating his usual cheerful energy, a woman dramatically cries out, while other townspeople look on in utter bewilderment and fear, once again completely flustered by the overwhelming presence of the barbarian. As Keatle strolls through the domain, he spots a beautiful, unassuming building and, with a spark of recognition, realizes it's a library, a place of knowledge and wonder he's never truly experienced. He strides confidently into the library, and before the librarian can even finish her greeting, he politely asks if he can read some books, but his towering, intimidating presence makes her shriek in pure terror. Completely unfazed by the librarian's fear, Keatle is now calmly seated at a desk, fully immersed in a book, while the terrified librarian watches him nervously from behind. An unseen observer is absolutely dumbfounded, witnessing a barbarian, especially one from the terrifying snowfields, actually reading a book, completely shattering all their preconceived notions about such ignorant and savage beings. The observer concludes that this particular barbarian is not like the others, he is truly special, possessing an intellect far beyond what they believed possible for his race. Keatle, engrossed in his reading, learns about the ongoing war, connecting it to Melfina's desperate mission to sell weapons, as he reads about the Empire's relentless advance, a force trying to consume the entire world. He subtly adjusts his collar, a thoughtful expression on his face as he processes the massive scale of the Empire's ambition, musing, world domination, huh? With a newfound purpose, Keatle decides he's had enough of human affairs for now and, with sparkling eyes, shifts his focus to what he truly wanted to investigate next. His curiosity now fully engaged, he proclaims his next mission, to learn more about non-human races, indicating a profound desire to understand the fantastical beings of this world. As he flips through a book titled Non-Human, Keatle's eyes light up, realizing that the fantastical creatures and places he's reading about actually exist in this world, deepening his excitement for exploration. As Keatle eagerly dives into the book, he discovers more breathtaking, fantastical locations like the dwarven cave Gulmantamia, the fairy village Pizarapia, the aerial city of the Celestials Lagmelia, and the mysterious elf sanctuary, Elf Sagrada, whose location is completely unknown. With a confident smirk, Keatle muses to himself, realizing he must have earned the extraordinary right to visit the Elves' Sanctuary, a place shrouded in mystery and legend. But his excitement quickly turns to bewildered shock as he reads further, his eyes wide with disbelief, wondering if there are truly more places like the terrifying white snowfield, the desolate land he just escaped. The book dramatically reveals the existence of one of these terrifying demon realms is depicted as another chilling demon realm is the mysterious. Then, there's And finally, the most shocking revelation: the white snowfield itself is one of these. Ketil leans back, utterly stunned by the sheer scale of the world, musing to himself. Ketil, having learned all he could from the library, leans back from the desk, concluding that he's gathered all the available information here, while the librarian watches him with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. With a charming smile, Ketil sincerely thanks the librarian, telling her that the information he found was incredibly informative, leaving the flustered librarian to nervously agree, completely overwhelmed by his presence. The next day, Ketil is back at the Mercenary Guild, his usual cheerful self, greeting a surprised receptionist and asking if there are any new requests available for him today, ready to continue his work. With a radiant smile, Ketil eagerly accepts the request form from the receptionist, his eyes gleaming with excitement, clearly looking forward to another day of mercenary work and exploring this new world. Meanwhile, Swordmaster Kane, the enigmatic observer who has been secretly monitoring Ketil, reads a surveillance log about Ketil's unusually fast progress, concluding that this barbarian is quite unusual, and decides it's time to meet him in person. That night, Ketil stands outside, a satisfied smirk on his face, proudly declaring that he successfully completed over a dozen requests today, a testament to his boundless energy and eagerness for work. Ketil confidently holds his bag of earnings, reflecting that even these seemingly small jobs are surprisingly profitable, finding immense satisfaction in the accumulation of wealth from his honest labor. As Ketil strides purposefully through the night, he muses that if he maintains this relentless pace, the day he earns full recognition as a true mercenary will undoubtedly arrive sooner, fueling his determination to keep pushing forward. Suddenly, Ketil stops, his perceptive gaze fixed on a shadowy figure who has been silently trailing him, and with a confident smirk, he casually asks if they've been following him all day, completely exposing the stalker. The hooded figure, revealed to be Swordmaster Kane, is utterly shocked that Ketil noticed him, stammering in disbelief, while Ketil, unfazed, directly asks what business the mysterious stranger has with him. Swordmaster Kane, completely baffled, internally screams that he clearly hid his presence using aura, so it should have been absolutely impossible for anyone, no matter how sharp their instincts, to sense him. Ketil, completely unfazed by Kane's shock, simply raises a hand and asks, with a hint of suspicion, "Don't tell me you're a bandit," leaving the disguised swordmaster utterly bewildered and sputtering. With no response from Kane, Ketil confidently concludes he was right, musing that even in a place with decent security, there are still bandits, while Kane internally denies being one and wonders if Ketil would even believe him if he said he was a swordmaster. Ketil, radiating a powerful purple aura, continues to grill Kane, asking if he really needs to turn to robbery in his old age, then, with a shake of his head, concludes that the economy must truly be in a bad state. With a confident smirk and sparkling eyes, Ketil muses to himself that bringing Kane in would be a good achievement for him, clearly misinterpreting the situation as a heroic act of catching a bandit. Kane's chibi form reacts with a comical look of pure shock and bewilderment, completely dumbfounded by Ketil's absurd accusations and intentions, asking what the... Regaining his composure, Kane internally realizes that Ketil is mistaking him for a bandit, but quickly sees this as a good opportunity to assess the barbarian's true strength, as Ketil beams innocently in the background. Kane, clenching his fist, decides internally that confronting Ketil directly and learning his strength and identity could be the most strategic way to proceed, showing a resolute determination. As Ketil takes a step forward, Kane, still in his cloaked disguise, looks visibly nervous, a bead of sweat on his brow, clearly feeling the pressure of Ketil's immense, unspoken power. Suddenly, Ketil, radiating an intense purple glow, vanishes from sight, leaving Kane utterly stunned and gasping in disbelief as a trail of crackling energy marks the barbarian's explosive movement. Kane is utterly stunned by Ketil's sudden disappearance, his eyes wide with disbelief as he questions, "He's gone." But with lightning speed, Ketil, radiating a powerful purple aura, reappears directly behind the stunned swordmaster, completely catching Kane off guard, who can only gasp, "What?" Kane, realizing Ketil's lightning-fast move, scrambles mentally, understanding that if he stays still, Ketil will easily grab him by the nape of his neck, forcing him to react with all his might. Ketil, with a confident smile, acknowledges Kane's impressive speed in evading his initial grab, remarking that he's not bad, "You're pretty fast." Kane, reeling from the close call, is shocked by Ketil's speed, realizing a moment's hesitation would have meant capture, but what truly baffles him is Ketil's complete lack of aura, making his immense speed inexplicable. Ketil finds Kane's reaction interesting, while Kane, still observing, grapples with the fact that Ketil moved with such incredible speed using seemingly nothing but his physical body, completely devoid of any detectable aura. Kane, realizing the gravity of Ketil's power, abandons the pretense of a mere test, his face twisting into a determined snarl as he declares he'll now go all out. But with bewildering speed, Ketil again moves instantly, his glowing purple eyes fixed on Kane as he effortlessly grabs the Swordmaster's head, completely neutralizing his attempt to unleash his full power. Kane is utterly disoriented and enraged, screaming internally that despite extending his senses to their absolute limit, he still couldn't react to Ketil's lightning-fast attack, leaving him bewildered by the barbarian's speed. Kane experiences a terrifying, overwhelming force, realizing it's not just a simple grab, it feels like his entire body is lodged in a boulder, being forcibly dragged along, completely at Ketil's mercy. Kane, struggling against Ketil's immense grip, lets out a strained groan, realizing with dawning horror that he cannot even compete in a pure power struggle, and decides he needs to switch tactics. With newfound resolve, Kane unleashes his full power, a vibrant green aura erupting around him as he prepares to go all out, determined to break free from Ketil's overwhelming hold. Ketil, observing Kane's sudden surge of power, notices a peculiar light emanating from the Swordmaster's hands, intrigued by this new magical manifestation. Ketil watches intently as Kane unleashes a burst of green energy, his expression a mix of curiosity and anticipation for what this bandit will do next. Kane moves with astounding speed, a blur of green energy trailing behind his every step, demonstrating his mastery of mana as he launches a powerful kick, aiming to break free and create distance. Ketil, completely unfazed and still smiling, casually remarks that bandits these days sure have all sorts of tricks up their sleeves, prompting Kane to furiously demand why he keeps calling him a damn bandit. Kane, now fully radiating a shield-like aura of materialized mana, mentally boasts that this is a feat only elite warriors can perform, then wonders why Ketil would accuse someone like him of something as petty as robbery. Ketil, completely convinced, beams with a charming smile, thinking this is all part of Kane's bandit technique, while Kane, utterly exasperated and sweating, can only stare in silent disbelief. Kane reflects on his materialized mana, which can shred hardened steel, yet Ketil, a mere human, stands without a single scratch, leaving Kane utterly bewildered and questioning what incredible power lies within that body. Kane watches in disbelief as Ketil, with a casual step, tanks materialized mana with his bare flesh, acknowledging Ketil's curious technique but still struggling to comprehend the barbarian's imperviousness. Ketil, completely unfazed by Kane's futile attacks, simply takes a step forward, a confident smirk on his lips as he casually declares, "I think it's about time to finish this," signaling the end of their little dance. Kane, finally abandoning his bandit disguise, swiftly draws his gleaming sword from its sheath, preparing to unleash his true, legendary power against the bewildering barbarian. But Ketil, moving with impossible speed, effortlessly blocks Kane's drawn sword with a single finger, his casual smirk contrasting sharply with the Swordmaster's wide-eyed disbelief. With a flick of his wrist, Ketil casually snaps Kane's legendary sword in half, leaving the Swordmaster's face a mask of utter, comical horror and disbelief. A closer look at Ketil's finger reveals he broke the blade clean off, leaving Kane trembling with rage and humiliation as his unbeatable weapon lies shattered in pieces. Ketil, his eyes glowing with a powerful purple aura, then reaches out, his true intentions still a mystery as he closes the distance between himself and the now disarmed Swordmaster. Kane, utterly defeated and terrified, his face contorted in pure despair, finally realizes the overwhelming power he's up against, thinking to himself, "This is the end for me." Ketil, completely oblivious to Kane's true identity, triumphantly slings the unconscious Swordmaster over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes, musing, "So this is what a bandit in a fantasy world looks like," still convinced he's caught a mere thief. Meanwhile, a bewildered guard witnesses the impossible scene, stammering in pure disbelief, "Be a barbarian. What is this?" Completely flustered by the sight of Ketil carrying a seemingly defeated old man. As Ketil confidently strides through the town, carrying the renowned Swordmaster Kane, a group of guards is thrown into utter chaos and panic, exclaiming, "What on earth is going on? Why is Swordmaster Kane here?" Ketil, completely unfazed, simply declares, "I caught a thief," setting the stage for an epic misunderstanding that's about to unfold. As Ketil calmly declares he caught a thief, a guard reacts with absolute disbelief, his eyes wide as he stammers, "A thief," clearly unable to reconcile Ketil's words with the identity of the person in his arms. Keatle, completely oblivious to the chaos, beams proudly, thinking to himself, if I hand him over to the guards, this will count as mercenary work, right? Still convinced he's just apprehended a criminal. A chibi guard is utterly bewildered, with multiple question marks floating above his head, wondering, what is this scene, completely lost in the surreal situation. The guard's mind races, trying to comprehend the impossible. Swordmaster Kane, a man of superhuman strength and legendary status, is being held in a humiliating position by a barbarian, a sight that defies all logic and respect. The guard attempts to explain to Keatle, he's not a thief, but Keatle, completely misinterpreting, confidently replies, so you know him. Sounds like he's an accomplice to the criminal. Another guard, ignoring Keatle's misunderstanding, bows deeply in reverence and formally greets the unconscious figure. I greet you, Swordmaster Kane, the only swordmaster of the Gehentra kingdom. Keatle looks utterly baffled, his eyes wide in genuine surprise as his thief is addressed as a swordmaster, while the unconscious Kane remains a sweating, disheveled mess. Keatle, still holding Kane, looks down at the swordmaster, completely confused, questioning, Swordmaster, a title that resonates with such grandeur, and you say he's a thief? Keatle, with a resolute expression, insists, that's impossible. He is a thief, and justifies it by saying, he attacked me for my silver coins, completely solidifying his misunderstanding. The guard, exasperated and trying to reason with Keatle, argues back, no, he really is the swordmaster. There's no way I'd mistake that face. Unless it's a sorcerer disguising his face. Still caught in his. Keatle, completely bewildered, asks the guard again. Keatle, completely flustered, manages to say. Lord Barkin is absolutely aghast, slamming his hand on his desk and screaming in disbelief. Keatle, now looking sheepish and remorseful, bows his head in apology, admitting he should have listened to the full story before making assumptions, clearly realizing his huge mistake. Swordmaster Kane, now conscious and looking incredibly irritated, dismisses Keatle's apology, stating it's also his own fault for not revealing his identity earlier, as the two men, one apologetic and one exasperated, sit across from each other. Lord Barkin watches the scene, bewildered, wondering what on earth is happening. He admits he anticipated Kane would seek out the barbarian for a duel but never expected his swordmaster to lose, especially in such a decisive manner. He doesn't know the details, but Kane's defeat is clear. Lord Barkin concludes that, in other words, this barbarian, Keatle, is undeniably stronger than a swordmaster, a truly shocking and terrifying realization. He reflects that while there are different levels among superhumans, and Kane just recently became a swordmaster, making him the Lord Barkin, clutching his head in frustration, admits his head hurts from all the misunderstanding. He then excuses himself, stating it looks like Keatle and Swordmaster Kane need to have a private conversation first. With Lord Barkin now gone, Keatle and Swordmaster Kane are left alone in the opulent hall, sitting across from each other, ready to clear up their epic misunderstanding. Keatle patiently looks at Kane, who appears slightly nervous, a bead of sweat forming on his brow, clearly uncomfortable after their recent spar. Kane, sipping his tea, internally admits the whole situation is utterly humiliating, feeling his pride wasn't just wounded, but completely torn apart, a perfect and undeniable defeat. Regaining his composure, Kane formally introduces himself to Keatle, stating, "Let me properly introduce myself. I am Kane, the Swordmaster." Keatle, completely bewildered, asks if Swordmaster is Kane's last name, and Kane patiently explains that once one reaches the realm of Swordmaster, their surname loses all meaning. Keatle replies, I see, then, ever curious, asks if what Kane showed him earlier, during their spar, was a true Swordmaster's technique, eager to learn more about such powers. Kane lets out a soft ah. Then manifests a vibrant green energy around his hand, asking, you mean this? Clearly ready to demonstrate his power. Keatle's eyes light up with a surprised oh. He admits that at first, he simply thought it was some kind of thief's technique and didn't care for it, but knowing it's a swordmaster's skill makes it quite fascinating. Kane then explains that this green energy is the manifestation of the mystic, which is also commonly called aura. Keatle is absolutely stunned, repeating, aura, as he pieces together the puzzle, his eyes widening in realization, asking, so that thing back then was aura? Keatle, his eyes wide with pure excitement, practically jumps out of his seat, eagerly asking Swordmaster Kane. Kane, regaining his composure, explains that basically, Ketil has to learn to control and manifest the mystic, demonstrating with a glowing ball of green energy in his palm. Ketil, still processing, leans forward and asks for clarification, wondering if the mystic is similar to mana. Kane elaborates, explaining that mystic refers to the energy itself. When it manifests as aura, it belongs to the realm of swordsmen, but when it appears as mana, it belongs to mages, showing how the same energy takes different forms. Ketil, with a knowing, confident smirk, connects the dots, concluding that both mages and swordsmen can effectively wield this incredible mystic power. Then, with intense enthusiasm, Ketil boldly asks Kane. Ketil, his eyes glowing with a powerful purple aura, stands tall and pleads with overwhelming sincerity. Kane, still completely bewildered, questions Ketil's request, asking why he would seek guidance from someone he's clearly stronger than, his face a mask of confusion and question marks. Ketil, now casually seated, clarifies his true weakness: he knows nothing about mystic or swordsmanship, admitting he simply swings wildly without any knowledge, a revelation that completely shocks Kane. Kane, his pride ignited, dramatically declares himself a swordmaster, asserting that despite his defeat, he didn't even draw his sword. With newfound resolve, he vows to teach Ketil the greatness of swordsmanship and restore his own shattered pride, a mischievous grin spreading across his face as Ketil looks on in excited disbelief. Kane, with a serious and determined look, explains that he is a sword master who truly wields a sword, and without it, he admits he's nothing but half a man, hinting at the source of his earlier defeat. Ketil, with a knowing smirk, completely validates Kane, telling him he thought so. No wonder he seemed so weak, it was because he didn't use his sword, which makes Kane flinch and nervously agree, completely humiliated. Still, Ketil muses to himself, it was truly odd for someone of Kane's obvious strength to be called a swordmaster, still hinting that he suspected more, thinking that this bastard must have been holding back. With a confident, almost cheeky smile, Ketil then assures Kane that if he had used his sword, he definitely would have won, and he eagerly looks forward to seeing that. Kane, meanwhile, is completely defeated internally, lamenting that his self-esteem won't recover from such a crushing, yet validating, blow. Ketil's inner monologue delves into the stark difference. Before his regression, swordsmanship was mere physical combat, but this is true fantasy swordsmanship, a strange form that wields the mystical power of aura. Kane begins explaining his swordsmanship, revealing its most distinct trait is the materialization of imagination and reality. He then asks Ketil what he saw when he fought his disciple, the knight, and Ketil recounts seeing the sword split into 3 real, distinct attacks. Ketil immediately grasps it, realizing, so that's what you meant by materialization, understanding the knight's technique was a style closer to finesse than raw power, and Kane confirms his insight. Kane, now holding a gleaming sword, proudly defines swordsmanship as the art of combining the sword and aura to wield mystical power, declaring that anyone who reaches the end of that path is truly called a swordmaster. Ketil is absolutely captivated, his eyes wide with wonder as he repeats, "Oh, so that's aura." Kane, basking in Ketil's awe, gives a pleased, yet slightly flustered, "Why yes." Kane, now brimming with excitement, clears his throat, acknowledging that materialization might be hard to grasp, then declares, "I'll just show you myself," as he unleashes a powerful, glowing green energy slash that rips through the air, ready to demonstrate his true power. Kane, the swordmaster, unleashes his formidable green energy slash, a powerful attack that appears to split into multiple physical blades, ripping through the air with incredible force. Ketil watches in awe and surprise, realizing that what appeared to be a single strike actually split into 5 distinct, tangible parts, completely baffling him with its mystical nature. Kane then explains that while many techniques can create illusions using aura, his unique swordsmanship goes beyond mere trickery, making Ketil even more intrigued. He proudly declares that only his swordsmanship allows these aura-created illusions to truly take physical form, making them solid and real, a true testament to his mastery. Ketil, completely impressed by this mystical technique, confidently states to a visibly stunned Kane. Kane is utterly bewildered by Ketil's audacious claim, his face a mask of shock as he internally screams. Kane internally reflects on his life's unwavering dedication to the sword, the natural talent and bone-crushing effort it took to barely reach his level of swordsmanship, concluding there's simply no way someone could copy it just by seeing it once. Ketil, cutting off Kane's inner turmoil, casually declares it would be faster if he just shows him, and with that, he dramatically pulls out a massive, formidable axe. Kane stares in utter disbelief, his face a mask of pure confusion as he mutters. With a confident smirk and a powerful stance, Ketil proudly brandishes his massive axe, completely ready to demonstrate his own unique interpretation of swordsmanship. With his mighty axe, Ketil launches into action, a blur of overwhelming power as he executes a swift, multi-directional swing, creating shockwaves that tear through the air. Cain watches with wide eyes, questioning if that was truly a sword strike, before quickly realizing Ketil simply moved with brute strength and incredible speed, completely devoid of any refined technique. Ketil's single, devastating axe strike creates a colossal path of destruction, tearing through the hall's floor with a thunderous impact that sends debris flying towards the far wall. The explosion from Ketil's strike completely demolishes the far wall, leaving Cain utterly aghast and screaming in pure shock at the raw, unbridled power he just witnessed. Ketil stands tall and proud, a confident smile on his face as he holds his massive axe, and with a challenging gaze, asks Cain, "What do you think of his unique swordsmanship?" Cain reflects, admitting Ketil's move looked like a simultaneous strike of illusion and reality, but quickly deduces it was only due to overwhelming speed and power, confessing that even he almost got fooled by the sheer force. Cain confronts Ketil, bluntly stating his act was simply a swing, utterly devoid of technique. Ketil, however, counters that the result is similar, and after all, swordsmanship is meant for actual combat. Ketil, with a keen and confident gaze, questions if the lack of technical difference truly matters as long as the outcome is the same. Cain, visibly flustered and irritated, struggles to find a coherent response, clearly taken aback by Ketil's logic. Cain admits internally that Ketil isn't wrong, but his pride is severely wounded, clenching his fist in frustration as blue, ethereal waves ripple around him, betraying his inner turmoil. Regaining his composure and with a determined glint in his eye, Cain draws his own gleaming sword, proposing, "Then, how about this?" as he prepares to demonstrate true swordsmanship. Cain, the swordmaster, unleashes his incredible power, a vivid green aura erupting around him as he appears to split into multiple forms, each wielding a sword, showcasing his mastery of materialized aura. Ketil's eyes widen in sheer disbelief and surprise, as he inwardly questions, his body split apart, completely baffled by the mystical technique. The devastating impact of Cain's attack rips through the hall, a colossal burst of green energy shattering the ground and sending fragments of rock and debris exploding upwards, a testament to his overwhelming power. An overhead shot reveals the full scale of the destruction. A massive, cracked chasm now divides the arena floor, a direct result of Cain's awe-inspiring display of swordsmanship. Cain, turning away from the devastation, calmly explains that this incredible feat is a separation of the body achieved through ultimate control of aura, further mystifying Ketil. He then turns back to Ketil, a challenging glint in his eye, and asks the barbarian, "Can you replicate it?" daring him to copy such a complex and powerful technique. Ketil, completely unfazed, takes a confident step forward, his massive axe in hand, a resolute expression on his face as he prepares to answer Cain's challenge with his own unique method. With a powerful grunt and a determined smirk, Ketil raises his colossal axe high, preparing to unleash a devastating strike that radiates raw, untamed power. Then, with a furious, spiraling vortex of purple energy, Ketil brings his axe down, unleashing a colossal blow that utterly devastates the ground, cracking it deeply as powerful shockwaves rip through the air. The impact creates a massive, swirling purple explosion that tears through the floor, sending debris flying upwards, as Ketil, now confident in his display, simply asks Cain, "What do you think?" Ketil's devastating axe strike leaves Cain completely shattered, literally on his knees, lamenting that the swordsmanship he dedicated his entire life to building is now reduced to this, completely overwhelmed by Ketil's raw, unbridled power. He's utterly broken and inconsolable, completely unable to believe that his lifetime of training could be so easily overshadowed by a simple swing of an axe. Ketil, looking a little concerned, comments that Cain's mental fortitude is far weaker than he expected, still completely oblivious to the emotional devastation he just inflicted. But then, with a surprising turn, Cain looks up, a tear still falling, and admits that Ketil's unique brand of swordsmanship is truly amazing, a backhanded compliment that still acknowledges his overwhelming power. Ketil, still humble, replies that he merely swung his axe quickly, while Cain, with a determined gaze, asserts that it's not real swordsmanship, despite its incredible effectiveness. Cain clarifies that Ketil's attack wasn't a mere afterimage but a tangible, real blow, a level of mystery so profound that he admits he can never hope to reach it, acknowledging Ketil's true, inexplicable power. With a renewed sense of pride, Kane stands defiant, surrounded by his materialized aura clones, asserting that his swordsmanship, the unique technique of materializing illusion in reality, still holds immense value and is something only he can do in this entire world. But Keatle, completely unfazed, simply thinks that Kane is insane, wondering what kind of madman can move fast enough to make afterimages solid without even using aura, a feat he casually accomplished, leaving Kane completely bewildered and admitting it goes beyond human limits. After their intense confrontation, Keatle, still eager to learn, asks Swordmaster Kane if he can teach him true sword techniques. Kane, looking a bit flustered, apologizes for getting emotional, then assures Keatle he understands the request. Kane, in his chibi form, clears his throat, then begins his explanation, stating that to master true techniques, Keatle must first learn how to control aura. He elaborates that controlling aura requires awakening to the concept of mystery, emphasizing that no wizard, swordsman, or witch can reach a higher realm without this awakening. He also mentions that only those who believe in gods can achieve divine power, distinguishing it from mystery. Keatle, connecting the dots from his conversation with Hayes, thoughtfully asks if divine power is, indeed, a different matter entirely, showing his quick grasp of the new information. The explanation continues, confirming that miracles are granted directly by the gods and are not connected to personal ability, further clarifying the distinction between divine power and the mystery of magic users. Keatle, in his chibi form, reacts with a surprised "Who," his eyes wide with fascination as he absorbs all this new, intricate knowledge about the world's power systems. Kane then clarifies that mystery is exactly what it sounds like, the mysterious power one possesses within, and how one controls it ultimately determines everything, a true source of individual strength. He further explains that to wield aura, gain mana, or command spirits, the crucial first step is to awaken to that mystery, then reveals that there are 5 distinct stages to mastering this enigmatic power. Kane, with a finger to his lips, explains the most basic stage is sensing mystery, describing it as the state of simply knowing, awakening to, and feeling its presence within oneself. Keatle, seeking more clarity, asks if not just anyone can feel mystery, and Kane confirms that without innate talent, one cannot even sense its existence, making this power even more exclusive. Kane continues, explaining that those rare individuals who can merely sense the presence of mystery, without yet controlling it, are categorized as third-rate. He clarifies that depending on one's ability to control mystery, they are assigned one of 5 distinct ranks, with third-rate being the very first and most basic of these classifications. Milfina, or a character with similar knowledge, then summarizes the full spectrum of ranks: third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, superhuman, and the legendary hero, explaining that all abilities are divided into these 5 categories. Keatle acknowledges this information, and Kane further explains that this ranking system is just a convenient way to classify abilities, adding that there's a huge, often imprecise gap between each rank, so simply understanding the core concept is enough. Keatle, now having a clearer understanding, confidently states, "Got it." Kane then, with a serious expression, declares, "Then, let us begin," signaling the start of Keatle's training in sensing mystery. Kane begins instructing Keatle on the very first stage of mastering mystery, which is sensing mystery, telling him to simply feel all things. Kane's lesson unfolds, instructing Keatle to awaken to sensations he's never felt before, to expand his senses as wide as possible, feeling the passing wind, the touch of the earth, and perceiving everything within the slipping breeze, including the subtle presence moving inside. Keatle attempts to follow Kane's instructions, meditating intently, but after a moment of frustrated effort, he admits, "I can't feel it, though," struggling with the elusive sensation of mystery. Kane reacts with visible surprise and confusion, stammering, "Oh really? I thought someone as strong as you would easily be able to sense it." Completely baffled by Keatle's unexpected inability. Kane then reflects that while it's not a strict rule, those who possess immense physical strength, even without mana, typically have a higher chance of sensing the mystical, but he concludes that this barbarian, Keatle, appears to be a perplexing exception. Kane, completely baffled by Keatle's inability to sense mystery despite his overwhelming strength, wonders aloud if this strange phenomenon is perhaps a unique peculiarity of the White Snowfield, a place even he knows little about. Keatle confirms Kane's suspicion, stating that he doesn't know why, but no one in his entire tribe from the harsh snowfield has ever been able to sense this mystical power, reinforcing the mystery surrounding his origins. Kane, realizing direct instruction isn't working, decides on a drastic measure, announcing that he will personally send his own energy into Keatle, to forcefully open the path to the mystical within him. Ketel's eyes widen in surprise, a faint blush on his cheeks as he eagerly questions if Cain is about to directly transfer aura into him, a magical feat he's only ever dreamed of witnessing. Cain, with a calm side glance, simply confirms Ketel's suspicion, admitting that it is indeed something like that, ready to proceed with the groundbreaking energy transfer. With a reassuring, yet firm, voice, Cain tells Ketel. Cain then gently places a hand on Ketel's back, instructing him to relax his entire body and focus his senses solely on his physical self, preparing him for the delicate infusion of power. With his hand still firmly on Ketel's back, Cain begins the transfer, urging Ketel to actively feel the mana now flowing directly into him, to awaken to its presence within his very core. But the moment Cain sends his mana into Ketel, he recoils in absolute horror and shock, screaming in disbelief. Cain's terror intensifies as he describes Ketel's body, thinking it feels like solid rock, overflowing with an unimaginable amount of muscle, questioning if Ketel is even human, while our boy, completely oblivious to the chaos he's causing, simply asks. Cain, flustered and snapping out of his bewildered state, apologizes for his mind wandering, then, with renewed determination, declares they should begin the process again. With his hand outstretched and green aura swirling, Cain begins sending mana, explaining that awakening the mystical power dormant inside Ketel's body is key, confident that Ketel will soon find the path, believing it shouldn't be too difficult. But as the mana transfer begins, Cain's expression shifts to surprise and then pure shock, his eyes wide as he questions what on earth is happening. Struggling to maintain the connection, Cain admits he cannot find the path to the mystical power inside Ketel's body, or more precisely, something even stranger is occurring. He confesses that he simply cannot reach it, completely unable to connect with Ketel's inner essence, while Ketel remains blissfully serene, completely unaware of the Swordmaster's deepening frustration. Cain's internal monologue reveals his profound bewilderment, feeling like he's swimming in an abyssal deep sea, unable to extend his aura or perceive anything, as if moving through a space so dense it could crush him to death. Visibly exhausted and exasperated, Cain finally declares, his voice strained, that it's not going to work, which completely startles Ketel, who looks up with a confused "huh?" Ketel, his eyes narrowed with anger, demands to know what Cain means by not going to work, questioning if he's being told he has no talent. Cain quickly denies this, explaining that simply sending aura into Ketel's body isn't enough to find the mystical power. Cain emphasizes that Ketel must discover the path within himself and awaken the dormant force, visualizing a glowing core of energy within Ketel's transparent form, symbolizing the power waiting to be unleashed. Ketel, understanding the concept of awakening his inner power, calmly replies that he knows that, but still, leaving a lingering question about a deeper, unspoken obstacle to his awakening. Ketel, utterly bewildered by Cain's confession, his eyes wide with disbelief, finally asks the crucial question, is Cain truly saying he can't sense the mystical at all, leaving him completely cut off from this world's magic? Cain quickly denies it, explaining that it's not that Ketel can't sense it, but that he couldn't even verify its presence within him. Ketel, still confused, demands to know what Cain means by that, his brow furrowed. Cain finally reveals the shocking truth, causing Ketel to flinch in genuine surprise. His body is fundamentally different, preventing the detection of mystical power within him. Cain elaborates, explaining that to find the mystical path, aura must flow deep into the body, but Ketel's body is simply too dense and heavy for his aura to properly penetrate. He admits this is a first for him, utterly baffled that pure physical power can block mystical energy. After 20 failed attempts, Ketel expresses his frustration, asking if he's truly unable to gain mystical power. Cain concedes it's hard to say definitively, as he couldn't even confirm if a path to the mystical exists within Ketel. He advises Ketel to seek other sorcerers or the magic tower for further answers. Cain, feeling genuinely apologetic, bows slightly, expressing his regret for not being able to help. Ketel, however, dismisses his apology with a confident smile, assuring him it's completely alright. Ketel, deep in thought, maintains a determined expression, concluding that there's still a chance for him to awaken his powers, and for now, that's enough to keep him motivated. A close-up of Ketel's clenched fist and intense gaze highlights his unwavering resolve, as he silently vows to push forward, despite the unexpected obstacle. Ketel, with a wide, genuine smile, thanks Cain profusely, expressing his sincere appreciation for all the valuable knowledge he's gained. Cain watches him, a pensive, unreadable expression on his face. Kane reflects on the traditional, brutal image of barbarians as uncontrolled, greedy, violent outcasts. But Ketil defies all these notions, prompting Kane to wonder if such a unique barbarian would ever consider settling down and pledging loyalty to their kingdom. Kane then clarifies what he meant by settling down and pledging loyalty, stating it involves receiving a title from the kingdom, making a concrete offer to Ketil. He further entices Ketil, explaining that with his immense strength, he'd receive a high-ranking position and Kane himself would act as his sponsor. Ketil looks intrigued, acknowledging it sounds interesting, but hinting at a deeper hesitation. But in a firm, unwavering tone, Ketil definitively refuses the offer, stating he has no intention of belonging to anything or anyone, maintaining his fierce independence. Lord Barkan's hidden ambition is revealed. He believes if he could bring this powerful barbarian under the royal palace's control, they could potentially break free from the Empire's oppressive rule, showcasing Ketil's strategic value. Kane, still trying to sway him, reiterates the tempting offer of noble status, asking if Ketil doesn't find it appealing. Ketil simply hums, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, hinting at his unwavering resolve. With a confident, almost mischievous grin, Ketil declares that instead of pledging loyalty, he will simply. Kane, with a look of resigned disappointment, finally concedes, stating. Ketil, his eyes sparkling with sincerity, thanks Kane for the offer, assuring him he won't forget the favor, a gesture of unexpected politeness from the wild barbarian. Later, Kane, now alone, reflects with a solemn expression that his initial thought of controlling Ketil was simply. He concludes his internal monologue, admitting he mistakenly thought he could control Ketil for a moment, but ultimately realizes that no one can. Ketil acts solely by his own will and, while he might fit into a group, that's the extent of it, because deep inside, there is only his own, unyielding will. Kane continues his internal monologue, admitting he can't read Ketil at all, and worries that this barbarian, a true being of the demon realm from the White Snowfield, might be far more dangerous than any other barbarian he's ever encountered. Meanwhile, Lord Barkan, now walking through the castle, is completely baffled by the Emperor's latest obsession, muttering about an expedition into the demon realm and questioning what in the world His Majesty is thinking. Back on his throne, the Emperor himself sits, coolly acknowledging the escalating conflict, then declares his ultimate goal. His Majesty the Emperor desires the conquest of the demon realm. The man in red, now revealed to be talking to Lord Barkan in a grand hall, gravely informs him that countless lives are being lost in vain, all under the flimsy excuse of reconnaissance, asking Lord Barkan if he's serious about their current predicament. Lord Barkan confirms his seriousness, then muses that perhaps the Emperor envisions himself as the second coming of an ancient emperor, but quickly dismisses the thought, stating, well, that's for later. He then leans back, his expression grim, reminding his advisor that they haven't even conquered all of human territory yet, highlighting the vastness of their current struggles and the Emperor's ambitious plans. The man in red, with a subtle look, acknowledges Lord Barkan's point, then remarks, with a touch of resignation, that it seems the time to conquer even more territory will inevitably come, regardless of their current status. Lord Barkan confirms, explaining that since this is Imperial land, a summons from the Emperor could arrive at any moment, and it's best to be aware of it in advance, to which the man in red simply offers a polite thank you. Lord Barkan then slumps back in his chair, letting out a frustrated sigh, lamenting that the world is already strange enough as it is, and now even the Emperor seems half insane, making everything just one big, throbbing headache. The man in red looks on with a deeply concerned and surprised expression, clearly worried by Lord Barkan's distress and the implications of the Emperor's escalating ambitions. The man in red's concern escalates as Lord Barkan, with a stern and piercing gaze, asks if a specific, unsettling rumor is true, hinting at a deepening crisis. The man in red gravely confirms the rumor, revealing that the movements of demons are starting to become visibly noticeable, one by one, signaling an impending threat. He continues, explaining that the frequency of dungeon appearances is unusually high, and while not certain, there's a chilling rumor that the very distortion of the demon realm is leaking outside, showing images of monstrous beasts like a purple snake and a giant bear. The advisor emphasizes that something significant and ominous is happening, and it's clearly not in humanity's favor, with terrifying images of a demoness and a white serpent monster underlining the gravity of the situation. Lord Barkan reacts with a sharp gasp as the advisor muses about the strangeness of it already being here, and the Lord, now visibly troubled, agrees, acknowledging the unsettling acceleration of these events. Lord Barkan, looking down thoughtfully, asks the older advisor for his opinion on this strange occurrence, to which the advisor simply replies, his expression grim, that he doesn't know what to make of it. The advisor states that at the very least, the mysterious barbarian hasn't shown any direct hostility towards them, but he admits he can't say anything beyond that, leaving Ketil's true intentions ambiguous as his silhouette is shown walking in the snowfield. Meanwhile, our boy Ketil is confidently striding through the domain in his usual fur-lined, shirtless attire, his muscular physique sparkling in the sun, completely oblivious to the fear and awe he inspires in the townsfolk. He spots a woman and a child recoiling in fear at his approach, and with a bewildered expression and a question mark floating above his head, he clearly wonders why people are so scared of him. Ketil then notices another man staring at him with wide, terrified eyes, visibly sweating, finally making him realize that his very presence is causing widespread panic in this new, civilized world. Ketil, noticing the widespread panic he's causing, thoughtfully wonders if people are freaking out and scared because of his clothes, still completely misunderstanding the true source of their fear. He then concludes that his beast-hide vest likely doesn't count as civilized attire, and people probably think he's crazy and want to stay away, still completely off base about his intimidating presence. With a determined spark in his eyes, Ketil makes a decisive choice. He'll buy some civilized clothes, believing this will solve his social awkwardness, a confident smile spreading across his face. A tailor, a man with a friendly mustache, greets Ketil warmly as he enters the shop, standing beside a mannequin proudly displaying a smart, beige suit. But the tailor's friendly demeanor instantly vanishes as he sees Ketil, his eyes widening in pure shock, gasping, "A barbarian," as Ketil's glowing purple eyes radiate intense power. The tailor, now visibly nervous, apologizes profusely, explaining they don't have anything in Ketil's colossal size. Ketil looks a bit disappointed, then asks if custom clothes are possible, and the tailor, after a moment, confirms they can make something, given enough time. Ketil's face lights up with a confident smile, clearly thrilled by the prospect of custom clothing, and eagerly instructs the tailor, "Oh, that's possible? In that case, please do." The tailor, completely overwhelmed, agrees to contact Ketil when the clothes are ready, but his inner monologue reveals pure terror. He imagines a furious, red-eyed Ketil if the clothes aren't perfect, wondering if he'll even survive that moment. As Ketil walks on the road to the guild hall, back in his usual attire, he spots a small, glowing blue gem-like object on the ground, his curiosity instantly piqued by this new mystery. Ketil, his curiosity burning bright, picks up the mysterious glowing blue object he found, turning it over in his fingers and wondering aloud if it's a precious gem. He hums thoughtfully, a close-up on his eye showing his focused curiosity as he examines the strange find. Deciding it's best to consult an expert, Ketil, surrounded by cute little chibi bears, resolves to simply ask about the mysterious object at the guild hall. He approaches the reception desk, where Rosa, the guild receptionist, looks utterly confused as Ketil holds up the glowing object and asks, "Do you know what this is?" Ketil hands the shimmering blue object to Rosa, explaining that he simply picked it up on his way here, leaving her with a tentative, "Ah, I see." Ketil looks at the object, then at Rosa, musing that it definitely doesn't seem like an ordinary bead, prompting Rosa to agree to take a closer look. Rosa examines the object carefully, concluding that it doesn't seem like a natural gem, but rather, judging by its smooth surface, it was probably meticulously crafted. She stares intently at the glowing blue orb, noting there's no name on it, but it's quite valuable looking, at least on the surface, a subtle hint that there might be more to it than meets the eye. Suddenly, Rosa is completely drawn into the mysterious orb, her eyes wide and blank, lost in thought, until Ketil snaps his fingers, pulling her abruptly back to reality. Ketil, a confident yet concerned expression on his face, asks a startled Rosa if she's alright, clearly noticing her brief, strange trance. Rosa, completely pulled out of her trance, stammered, "Huh? What do you mean?" And Ketil, with a concerned expression, explained that her mind seemed to be drawn into the orb. Rosa nervously asked, "Me," clearly bewildered, but Ketil quickly dismissed it, saying, No, never mind," choosing not to press the issue. Rosa then refocused on the orb, noting that it was difficult to identify and felt like it had some strange energy. She offered to appraise it for Ketil. With a confident smirk, Ketil declined, politely stating he'd rather look into it himself, finding that part of the fun in discovering new things. Ketil then shifted gears, asking what kind of requests were available today, completely ready for his next mission, and Rosa, a little flustered, went to retrieve the forms. Rosa presented the request forms, which listed mundane tasks like street cleaning, sewer cleaning, weed pulling, and potato harvesting, typical F-rank mercenary work. Keatle, beaming with enthusiasm, happily accepted the request forms, completely unfazed by the simple chores, his powerful barbarian physique contrasting humorously with the mundane tasks. Later that night, Keatle was relaxing in bed, stretching contentedly, and musing to himself, another fulfilling day, completely at ease after his day of work. Keatle held the mysterious glowing orb, his brow furrowed in thought, wondering, but seriously, what even is this thing, still pondering its true nature. Lying in bed, Keatle reflected on Rosa's strange trance, observing the orb's subtle glow, and wondered if it possessed some sort of hidden function or magical ability. As Keatle reflects on the mysterious orb, he's suddenly startled, hearing a strange voice emanating from within it, whispering, "I come to me." Completely baffling him. Inside his mind, the voice echoes, repeating its strange message, and Keatle, utterly confused, wonders if the orb is trying to guide him to some hidden location. Now outside, Keatle holds the orb as it kindly transmits directions directly into his mind, leading him forward, and he wonders if this is some kind of domination magic at play. The glowing orb pulsates in his hand, reaffirming its mysterious call, compelling him deeper into the unknown. Back in his room, under the soft glow of the moonlight, Keatle sits contemplating his next move, before making a resolute decision to follow the orb's mysterious summons. Now fully dressed in his barbarian gear, Keatle bursts through the foliage, already on his way, and irritatedly tells the persistent voice from the orb to shut up, as he's clearly following its directions. With a determined stride, Keatle's heavy bootfalls crunch against the forest floor, propelling him closer to his mysterious destination. Keatle abruptly stops, his eyes fixed on a dark, ominous cave entrance, and he questions if this is the place the orb has been leading him to. Standing deep within the cavern, Keatle announces his arrival, demanding to know where the one who called him is, his voice echoing in the mysterious depths as the orb's message repeats, "I've arrived." Suddenly, Keatle finds himself in a mysterious blue magical chamber, encased in glowing chains, as an ominous voice declares, "Another sage has entered," then scoffs, "This time, it's a dumb barbarian," concluding that his soul would make a decent offering. The ominous voice belongs to a powerful skeletal figure, cloaked in blue and emanating dark magic, who menacingly declares, "It's almost time." Soon now, clearly preparing for a sinister event. This cloaked skeletal mage sits amidst a glowing purple magical circle, holding a staff, his eerie presence declaring his intent to perform a dark ritual, stating, "Until resurrection." A flashback reveals the wicked past of this sorcerer, a time of chaos where he manipulated emotions, controlled kings, started wars, and ruled over countless kingdoms like puppets on strings, leaving a trail of destruction. His wickedness was eventually exposed, and he was hunted down by heroes, but just before his defeat, he transferred his soul into a life vessel, allowing him to become an immortal lich. Now, as a lich, an immortal being whose soul resides in a life vessel, he became the god of the world, planning to resurrect himself fully, a process that requires a massive amount of life force. He has been gathering sacrifices one by one, using mana cores to fuel his resurrection, as innocent people walk by, completely unaware. With immense power, he planned to conquer the world once more, and his goal was steadily nearing success. But then, Keatle, the barbarian, completely threw a wrench in his plans, leaving him to question, "But why is a barbarian here?" The lich's internal monologue continues, revealing he chose this remote domain to quietly regain his strength, believing it a secluded place untouched by the public eye. Still pondering Keatle's unexpected appearance, the lich muses that that's why a barbarian's presence here is quite unnatural, unable to explain Keatle's arrival in his secluded sanctuary, as Keatle glows innocently, completely oblivious. Holding a glowing image of Keatle, the lich menacingly declares, "Creatures from the north have come quite far. Judging by your size, you'll make an excellent sacrifice," sealing Keatle's fate as his next ritual offering. The lich then reveals his insidious trap. He placed a special effect on the mysterious orb Keatle found, an orb that only mesmerizes those who haven't awakened to the mysteries. Therefore, anyone who ends up here because of the orb doesn't understand the mysteries, making them perfect, unwitting sacrifices. The lich concludes that Keatle is just an ordinary barbarian who knows nothing of the mysteries, and his unmesmerized state must be some kind of illusion, completely underestimating our boy's true nature. With a chilling display of dark magic, the Lich extends his hand, a spectral image of Ketel trapped within a glowing blue flame, and menacingly commands him to come and become the cornerstone for his glorious resurrection, revealing the terrifying culmination of his sinister plans.